Good morning. And we're just going to wait for court to start. And we're going to wonder if it's going to start with a sidebar. And I don't know about any of you, but I'm starting the day with mega copious amounts of coffee. I've got some fresh fruit because when we left yesterday, I have to say, I had a new type of court coma. I can't believe. I'll be honest. I had a lot of respect for Robert Alessi as an attorney. He's a great legal mind. But I swear the man drank the Kool-Aid when yesterday I watched him put two different photos up from different angles and try to act like they were two different pieces of hair and act like the crime lab technician was in on a conspiracy. That's it. Like, I'm done with that. Now, I'm sure they've all joined the circus. I don't know what else to say. I thought about it all night, and I don't want to be disrespectful, but that was ridiculous. The only part of that cross that had any legal foundation or anything that was actually reasonable was touch DNA. Good questions. Why didn't they do any of that? I get it, you know? But seriously, two obviously different photographs from different angles. And when she put them up, thank goodness the text said put them up side by side. Hella out obvious. And here he is trying to lead the jury to believe that those are two different hairs and that the tech is not credible and must be lying and must be in cahoots with paid off by Proctor or some imaginary Gojo somewhere who just threw millions of dollars at the whole town of Canton so they could set this woman up. Sorry. Okay, that's the rant of the morning. I'm done now. Good morning, book lover. Good morning, Maggie. Nice to see you both. I have to get the bingo link together. I'm a little running behind, but I wanted to make sure that I was up and running for court if they, wanted to shock the hell out of me and start on time with anything other than a sidebar for some shenanigans that, the play of the day from the circus. I I don't know. I really got to get myself together. Is that what you were thinking too, Maggie? I just can't help it. I'm trying not to be biased, but like I just lost it yesterday. That's why I couldn't talk at the end of the stream because I was just like, I'm not gonna say it, I'm not gonna say it, I'm not gonna say it. And I got a good, I got some rest. I did the other Diddy show, I did the Diddy stream and I like concentrated on other things. And my mind just kept going back to it. And I woke up this morning and I went, there's no way I'm living with this inside of me. Like, it needs to be said. It needs to come out. Like, I couldn't do it. So, for those of you that are offended, sorry, not sorry. Y'all have your opinions about the conspiracy and how the, how everything in Canton Police Department is all messed up and how everybody's doing everything wrong. And you know what I have to say with that? And I'm going to say this loud, and I am not going to change my mind about it. Two things can be true at the same time. Yes, there's a messed up investigation. Yes, Michael Proctor is an idiot for doing what he did. But you know what else could be true? Karen Reed backed up into John O'Keefe and left him to die in the snow. The physical evidence that I have seen in this case proves it. And Hank Brennan's doing a damn good job of making the jury think so. And you know how I proved it? Well, I ran it through every single IA tool I could get my hands on last night. I had it look through all of the documents, all of the motions, all of the previous trial, and all of the current trial to date, all of the evidence. And they all agreed with me. There is more than a 75% chance that the jury is on the side of credibility for the physical evidence in this case. Now, granted, the defense is doing a damn good job of reasonable doubt. Oh, the investigation's messed up. Oh, the police are shady. Oh, you just can't trust anybody. Oh, man, just look at her. No, don't look at her, because Karen Reed is actually the best proof that the physical evidence is real. Just take a look at the defense table. She's on her phone. She's goofing off. She's acting entitled. She took a sick day so she could rest, not because she was sick. She closed the court down because her father took to the stairs yesterday into the microphones to tell everybody she wasn't sick. She just needed some time, some stress. She's having a bad day. So are the family and friends of John O'Keefe, who every day he's not here. Because if you did back into him, you didn't have the balls to go back and call 911. Sorry, it had to be said. Now my side has been declared. Call me what you want. I can't be unbiased about it anymore. It is exactly the way I see it. I think Brennan, there are serious issues with this case. Serious issues. But two things can be true. Now it's up to the jury. I always tell you guys that, right? I always say it's up to the jury to put credibility and to put the weight on the evidence that's there. Let's just hope they're actually paying attention. Because if they're actually paying attention to the hoops that the defense is drawing through, while that little ringmaster sits at the table and puts a hoop, and you jump through this one, and you jump through that one, and you do this, and you do that, while she just sits there, and she might as well be filing her nails. The lack of disrespect is unbelievable. Hey, Jared. You're caught right in the middle of my rant, checking in from the land of tomorrow. While many things will still be shite, there are many events to enjoy. I do hope so. Where do you mean from the land of tomorrow? Are you over in the southern hemisphere? Where are you, Jared, my man? Because you're on the East Coast with me, and we ain't in the land of tomorrow over here. Yep, I'm not seeing conspiracy. There were errors, but conspiracy. Exactly. It was a horrible investigation. There's definitely serious problems. I mean, Proctor is an issue that needs definitely. But two things can be true at once. Proctor can be an asshole and mess up everything. But did he actually plant evidence? When? How? Look at the timeline. How? You know? And this whole theory about they did something in the house. Oh, yeah, they did. And then they dumped the body on the front lawn for everybody to find. Morons. Seriously. Leaving Yokohama after a baseball game. It's just after 10 p.m. Oh, okay. Yokohama. Oh, not Oklahoma, Yokohama. I read that too quick. You are on the other side of the world. Well, I hope you're having a fantastic time there, Jared. And thanks for stopping in. I'm glad you're enjoying a nice baseball game over there. Awesome. Hey, Jen. Good to see you. Sorry you walked into a rant. And thank you for the growth. And we are all fans of the fans, but you know. Anyway, the physical evidence of the timeline between the new evidence. You see, when I punched in the new evidence, and we haven't even got to the Lexus evidence yet, with the actual accident reconstruction, where they take the information out of the box itself. Okay, which I believe is why the defense has been so over the top and extra, because they know that's coming. It's bad enough the phone stuff came with the temperature that proves that phone did not move. Okay, the timeline, if you're paying attention, works. You know, and it's just a matter of what the jury puts the weight of everything on, what they actually feel is important or not. Whether they understand the technical evidence, whether they understand what the actual text said when thank goodness the text said, put those two pictures up next to each other, because otherwise it sounded like Alessi was saying that there were two hairs, and why did you only test one? Like, who did the other one belong to? Could it have been somebody else? Just like the blood, could it have been from multiple people? No. And here's the thing. If you really believed in this conspiracy thing, why didn't you guys test the blood? Defense team. You could have. You could have proved that there was like blood from everybody from the house in that cup. Seriously. The what ifs go both ways. They are so lucky I'm not a lawyer. Seriously, because the what ifs go both ways, man. A whole week. That sounds lovely. Wow. You guys are going to Mount Fuji tomorrow? Oh, I am so envious. AT2, I'm so glad you got to go back and you got to enjoy it. And you guys are having a great time. That is so awesome to hear. Thank you for sharing that. That kind of makes my morning. It really does. Yeah, wait, it moved 86 steps in 20 seconds. It left no footprints, Maggie. There's no footprints in the snow. Nobody inside the house saw him come in. Karen can't decide which door he entered or when he entered because she said he didn't. She said he did. She said it was the front door. He poked his head in, and then she said it was the side door. She saw him go in. Yeah, no, he didn't have time to do any of that. Exactly. Oh, Osaka. Oh man, the food and the atmosphere and oh my god, and all the things you get and Mount Fuji. Like, oh wow. Damn, 82, share some pictures with me when you get back. Come into the server. We've got a room for art and photography and drop us some photos of Japan. It would be awesome. I'm so glad you guys got some time away. Hey, Shill, thank you so much for the coffee, love. Nice big cup of coffee there. Thank you so much. I've been enjoying it. Mm. I just want, like, I really do. I just want someone to just be reasonable, just say the reasonable stuff for a little bit. Like, I don't want to be on one side or the other. I really don't. I'm just getting so annoyed with the shenanigans, you know, and the lack of reasonableness. Oh my God. Oh, Jared, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to keep that just for me. But oh my God, what a lovely otter. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you, Boo. You just made my day. Oh, looks like we're going into trial. I hear voices. Okay. Oh, why is it still got that up there? Hold on. Oh, turn this off. There we go.
You are unmuted.
I was told council wanted to see me.
Oh,
Okay.
FFS. Oh my God. Are you kidding me? All right, sidebar number one. I'm marking Twitch. I'm marking everything. I'm gonna put them in the chat so we all can follow. I can't believe they're opening with a sidebar again. Why do they come on to tell us they're not coming on? If this was a date, there definitely wouldn't be a second one. I'm just saying. Hey, Sin, nice to see you. Thanks for hanging out over in the Twitch side. Hey, Oxagor, how are you? Hi, welcome. Welcome over here on YouTube. We're live over there on X and on Twitch at the same time, so pick your pleasure. Your otter bucket is empty, Turtle Moves. That's a sad, sad thing. I will enjoy those. 82. Thank you for dropping in and making my day. And please, share some stuff from Japan. Have a wonderful time. The food, the air, the atmosphere, and Mount Fuji today. Damn. And Japanese beer at the game must have been awesome. Say hi to the wife. That otter was amazing. That was a great picture. Oxagore, am I saying your name right? I don't want to get it wrong. But welcome. Okay, what was I doing? All right, let's see. We still have a guard near William Reed, keeping him from staring down the jury. Yeah, but you know what, Sin? If you go over to X, I can't see the chat over there. So it's the only place I see chat is in Twitch and in YouTube. For some reason, StreamYards wouldn't bring it over. They used to several months ago when I first started to do it. But not since. All right, I was getting the bingo link. Let's see. What did I do? And then I forgot, and then I got sidetracked. Let me see if I can find it now. Live bingo. Okay, here we go. Live trial bingo created by Rocket Couch. We could all have some fun while we wait. It's going in both, and then I'll pump it. Hey, Puff Bunnies, thanks for joining us over on Twitch. How are you doing? Are you streaming today? I love hanging out at your streams. I just have been kind of busy with this trial, and I haven't been able to attend. But when I'm free, I'm there. Puff Bunnies does some great gaming streams, and she's funny AF. I do love people with a good sense of humor. Okay, did this? Okay. Oh, where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay, pin. There we go.
All right, so go to
Okay, we're going to get started. They're going to bring in the jury. See that? We got to rise. They go to the fan. We get to pay homage to the fan. We're all fans of the fan. Oh, you said YouTube, not X. I see, Sin. You're coming over to YouTube? Cool. If it makes chatting easier, that's great. For some reason, the Y and the T look like an X. I think I got to clean my glasses, to tell you the truth, or have a little more coffee. Probably the coffee. The fan of judgment spins and spins. Yes, it does. I have to tell you, Oxygor, sometimes that fan's the only thing that keeps us sane around here, because if you watch this trial and you get to see what goes on with the freaking defense and how we hear all of this crazy stuff that happened, how people drop the ball with this and nobody dotted an I or crossed the T. It's got the worst legal manners I have ever seen in a trial. The disrespect, my God. The hypocrisy. I mean, the hypocrisy is like, it was ankle deep and then it went to knee. And I swear to God, it's hip deep. It's hip deep at this point. I'm jealous, Shill, that you get to nap right now. I'm looking forward to my nap after trial, because I don't have a stream after trial today. Although I don't regret doing the diddler last night, because like that had to be done. You know, that had to be done. And I saw the most Law and Crime. By the way, guys, anybody that's following the Diddler case, Law and Crime did an AI of the prosecutor's opening statements and used all AI figures and voices and used the transcript of what she said. It was freaky. It was absolutely freaky. It was very informative and I truly enjoyed it, but it was unsettling to know that like lawyers are going to be replaced by AI robots sometime in the future. You just program in what you want to say and somebody else off to work. It is sad. I agree with you, Oxygor. When the level of professionalism hits bottom like that, I get a bit cranky. I did start the stream with a bit of a rant this morning. Poor Maggie and Book Lover were here first and had to listen to it. But I just couldn't believe the way they ended the stream yesterday. And just what that defense attorney was trying to insinuate against a crime lab technician, as if like everybody in the world is conspiring against his client. Like, oh my. Wow. All the way from Twitch over here. Hey, Sin. Welcome to YouTube world. Phrasing? What did I say, Jean? Did I accidentally make an unintended innuendo again? Did I say something naughty without intending to? Or did I actually say something naughty I meant? Yeah, that's how it is today, Jin. Oh, Jin, I checked my email. I couldn't find anything. I even checked my spam. I don't know. You checked the address? Oh, doing diddler? I ain't doing diddler. I'm staying away from the diddler. Diddler did everybody and everything. That's just like too much for me. I'm staying in my lane, like way over here on the other side of the world. What I meant was that I did a true crime and legal update stream on the legal proceedings in the federal RICO case against the diddler. That's what I meant. Is that better? Yeah, because man, they totally not my type. Yeah.
You are unmuted.
Well, that's nice. The fan is unmuted. Well, for those of you that are new here, I apologize that your first experience here is going to be Robert Alessi, defense attorney, doing cross-examination for another, God knows how long, because he got nowhere yesterday. I don't know how long and what he's going to do today.
Hey. All persons have any business before the Honorable Beverly Cannone, Justice of the Norfolk Superior Court, and for the County of Norfolk. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. On the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the court is now open. You may be seated.
Good morning again, counsel. Good morning again, Ms. Reed.
Good morning, jurors. We thank you for your patience. Once again, we worked out something here this morning rather than having you watch us over at Sidebar. So we appreciate your patience. I do have to ask you those questions. Were you able to follow the instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we left yesterday? Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we left yesterday? Everyone said no.
Thank you. May we have Ms. Hartnett, please?
I really feel for Miss Hartnett. This is the crime lab technician, right? Like forensics. And let's see what Robert Alessi can innuendo his way into with like 72 sentences, and I kid you not. Like, buckle up, get some extra coffee, get a pillow near you for when your head hits the desk.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Hartnett, and welcome back this morning.
Good morning.
I'm sure she'd rather be anywhere than.
Your Honor, if I could please have Exhibit 145 that is in evidence published.
Yes.
Mr. Wolk.
I'm going to
Ms.
mute
Hartnett,
so I
you will
don't staff
recall
Leslie.
discussion about the taillight from the Lexus that was discussed on both direct and cross-examination yesterday.
Yes.
And you recall the discussion with regard to the weather that was in existence on or about January 29th. I'm not going to go into it at all. I just want to sort of refresh and reorient to where we were on that topic. You recall that?
Yes.
And I am now going to reference specifically what you referred to yesterday, I believe, as the inner part of the taillight, sometimes the inside of the taillight. Do I have that parlance correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. So my question is, did you find any sand or salt or any other debris in the inside portion of that taillight?
No, I did not.
Now, and you can take that down. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. You recall discussion about shards of taillight? Do you recall that discussion at all in your testimony?
No, I'm sorry, I do not.
Okay. I wasn't certain whether we had that parlance. So my question is, to your knowledge, was there any testing of any taillight alleged to have been found at 34 Fairview for biological material?
No, there was not.
And could you just please state what your definition is, inclusion, when you refer to biological material?
Those items were not processed in the criminalistics unit for any type of biological, meaning they would not tested for blood, semen, saliva, or a skin cell collection.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part that you.
Or a skin cell collection.
Now turning and changing topics. There was a T-shirt and a hoodie of the decedent. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And are you okay with my parlance of T-shirt, the yellow or orange T-shirt on the one hand, and then the gray hoodie sweatshirt? Is that an acceptable parlance for you?
Yes.
So with regard to those two items, if I could, Your Honor, have published what is already in evidence, Exhibit 151 and 150, and Mr. Wolk, if we could please put those side by side. Alrighty, so is it correct that what's on the left is the right sleeve of what we refer to as the hoodie, and on the right is what color would you like to call that T-shirt?
Orange, please.
All right, so the orange T-shirt. Is that what we're looking at up on the screen?
Yes, so it's the right sleeve of the gray hoodie and the back of the orange T-shirt.
Thank you. Am I correct that you included a handwritten note on your report that you found, quote, debris from each of these two items, or from these two items collectively?
I don't handwrite notes on my report, so I'm just confused about where you're asking that.
Okay, I'll ask a different question. Hopefully it will be clear. Did you find debris on either of those two items of clothing?
Yes, I performed a debris collection on each of those items and combined them.
I'm sorry, it's not your fault, it's mine. There's a HVAC noise I can't hear. If you
So
could
can we
speak up
turn the
just a
air
little.
conditioning off, please?
I'm okay with
can
it.
speak
It's
up.
just if
I'm
you could
sorry.
speak up a little. I don't want to
Of course.
discomfort people. Can you move the mic?
Yes, I can speak up. My
If you could
apologies.
speak a little louder, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yes.
Can you repeat your answer, please?
Can you repeat the question? I apologize.
Sure. Did you find debris on these articles of clothing?
Yes, I took scrapings from each of these items of clothing and combined the debris. Yes.
With regard to scrapings, can you describe how the term scrapings relates to these two items these two items that are on the screen?
Yes. Scraping is the mechanism I use to remove any debris that was remaining on both the sweatshirt and the t-shirt. I held each up over my lab bench. I took a long metal spatula and scraped any debris that was on these items into a small glassine packet.
Is it correct that you do not know where the debris came from specifically, other than it came from one or both items of both of these two items?
Yes, that's correct.
So the debris could be from just the hoodie, it could be just from the t-shirt, or it could be a combination of the both?
Yes, the items were packaged together, so they were already commingled. So there was no way for me to determine which debris came from which item, and it would be misleading to label them as such, so I combined them.
Exactly where my next point was going to go to. Thank you. And my next questions. So what, if anything, were these two items contained in when you got them?
They were contained in a brown paper bag, and they may have been contained in a larger box, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
So when you got them and you saw them for the first time, using your term, they were commingled together, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And was there any debris in the bottom of the bag?
There may have been. When I examine something on my bench, I also shake out the bag to ensure that nothing is left behind and that everything is examined and accounted for.
Now, am I also correct that there is no description of the actual debris that you found? For example, you didn't specify whether it was little fibers, little hair, little pieces of this or that. Do I have that correct?
Correct. I did not do any examination on it. I just packaged it.
And therefore, you didn't note whether any of the debris was a plastic or a plasticine nature, correct?
Correct. That would not be part of my analysis.
And there was no marker put on any part of the debris that was recovered. Is that also correct?
I labeled the debris with an item number. I'm not sure what you mean by marker, if that's what you mean.
Parts of debris, in other words, there wasn't separate identification or markers for separate pieces of debris.
No, I did not separate out the debris.
There was no photograph taken of the debris?
Not by me, no.
Do you have knowledge of whether there was a photograph taken of the debris by anybody?
I do not.
So you have, as you sit here today, you have no knowledge that there's a photograph of the debris.
That's correct. I do not.
When you received the hoodie and the t-shirt that's depicted as 150 and 151, they came in together, commingled with some debris at the bottom in an evidence bag. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if there was debris at the bottom of the bag. What I can say is that there was debris on the items, and I did shake out the bag. I don't have a memory of anything coming out of the bag. I don't know.
So there could have been debris at the bottom of the bag when you shook it out. You just don't recall.
Yes, correct.
If we could, Your Honor, please have Exhibit 154 already in evidence published. And let's keep it there for a moment, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Wolk for you to zoom in. Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize this generally, and then I'm going to have it zoom in so you can read it, as an evidence bag?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Wolk, could you please zoom in starting from the top so that Ms. Hartnett can fairly read this? And if you could, Ms. Hartnett, just take a moment to read it, and then I'm going to ask you some questions, but I want you to have a fair opportunity to read it. Let me know when you're done.
Okay.
And if we can then scroll down, Mr. Wolk, so that Ms. Hartnett can fairly read the rest of what's on there.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Wolk, if you could just leave it where it is now. With Your Honor's permission, I don't see a need to keep the lights off, can have that on, but if Ms. Hartnett needs it, you'll just let us know. So Is this the evidence bag that the T-shirt and the hoodie were in when you received those items?
To the best of my recollection, yes.
You see the name of collected by someone there. Can you read who that states it was collected by?
Yes.
And state what that is.
It says TPR Proctor.
And are you able to conclude what the TPR stands for?
Generally, we use that to abbreviate trooper.
Right. So that is former Trooper Proctor that it says collected by, correct?
That is what's written on the bag, yes.
And the date of the collection, if we can just, Mr. Wolf, just focus in on that. Thank you. The date of the collection is January 29th, 2022, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Is it a fair conclusion from this evidence bag and your experience on the matter to conclude that former Trooper Proctor was the person who collected the evidence and put it in the bag?
I have no knowledge of who actually collected it and put it in the bag. I can only read what I see on the monitor.
In terms of, and if we could, Mr. Wolf, please take that down and put back up the side-to-side images and depictions of the T-shirt and the hoodie. Do you know the journey, if you will, of those two items before you received them?
No, I do not.
The debris that you ultimately saw on the hoodie and the T-shirt, and that which may or may not have also been additionally in the bag, do you know where that debris would have been picked up from?
No, I don't know the source of the debris.
And you were not provided with information as to the potential source of that debris, correct?
No.
Were you aware of whether or not the debris, whether those items had been on the floor of an ambulance or a floor of a hospital?
No, I did not have any information like that.
Is it important to maintain the sanitary condition of evidence generally to avoid contamination?
We do our best to avoid contamination once we receive items into evidence, yes.
And what are some of the protocols that are used to avoid contamination of evidence generally?
Generally wearing gloves, putting items in packaging, bleaching any materials or utensils that we're going to use, or using disposable materials, sterile materials when possible or necessary. We also wear lab coats when processing evidence.
Is another protocol or technique to separate out pieces of evidence to prevent cross-contamination?
Sometimes we will separate pieces of evidence. If the items are already mixed in with each other, then the items are kept together, can be kept together.
Do you know the chain of custody of either the hoodie or the T-shirt?
I only have record of the chain of custody from when it was delivered to the lab.
So before any delivery to the lab, you do not have knowledge of the chain of custody of either of those two items?
No, I just know which detective unit dropped the items off.
And which detective unit was that?
Norfolk Detective Unit.
What I would like to now do is we can now take that down. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. I want to sort of speciate, if you will, separate out the evidence that you have talked about so far so that it's clear what you submitted and what may have been submitted by others to the lab. Do you understand that concept generally?
Yes.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do is to give categories, and if you would be kind enough to say, I submitted it by some other person, that would be helpful. Any items that were collected from the vehicle, who submitted those to the lab or brought them to the lab?
I did.
The swabs from the red Solo cups.
I submitted the swabs.
The drinking glass that you were presented with at Canton PD.
I submitted that item.
The two clothing items that we just saw on the screen, the hoodie and the t-shirt.
Those were submitted by the Norfolk Detective Unit.
Were there also any fingernails that were part of the investigation and that you had knowledge of?
Yes.
Describe what those were, please.
Fingernails may be collected at the medical examiner's office, and they're clippings from the top of the fingernails of the victim.
And were those submitted to the lab?
Yes.
And by whom?
By the Norfolk Detective Unit.
And the phrase known blood standards, are you familiar with that phrase?
Yes.
Can you tell the jurors, please, what that means?
A known blood standard is a sample of blood that is collected from an identified person.
And which person were those known blood standards related to your knowledge in this matter?
We received a tube of blood that was identified as belonging to John O'Keefe.
And with regard to the fingernails and the known blood standards, who submitted those to the lab?
The Norfolk County Detective Unit.
So am I correct to conclude that for those items that you submitted to the lab, you knew sort of their journey, if you will, but that those items that were submitted by you, I think you referred to as Norfolk County, was your parlance?
Yes, correct.
You don't have knowledge about those other than that they were submitted by them?
Prior to them arriving at the lab, correct. I have no knowledge of what occurred, where they were stored or anything like that before that.
And no knowledge of those items not submitted by you would include no knowledge of the chain of custody of those items, correct?
No knowledge prior to them being received into the lab. That is correct.
Your Honor, if I may have a moment, please, it'll
Okay.
probably be 30 to 45 seconds. Thank you. Bear with me, please.
She's very precise in her answers. He's not going to be able to get her to say something that isn't true. They can't deny that Norfolk was handling this because Canton had a conflict of interest. They didn't do anything wrong. They took over when necessary. So, of course, there's not going to be like the logs from one police station to the other. They used an evidence locker, turned over everything to Norfolk, who then turned everything over to the Massachusetts State Police. This was a fishing expedition.
So the questions I have for Ms. Hartnett at this time, thank you for answering my questions, Ms. Hartnett.
Wow.
All right, Mr. Brennan, any redirect?
Yes.
Please, Mr. Brennan.
You mentioned that you had an opportunity to observe a paper bag that had red Solo cups in it,
Yes, that's correct.
and the red Solo cups had a coloring of red in the cups.
Yes.
You'd never seen blood preserved in cups like that before?
Objection, Your Honor.
To the form. Sustained.
Had you ever seen blood stored in cups like that before?
No.
Do you know the circumstances of storing that blood?
Can you rephrase that question, please?
When the blood was stored in the cups, do you know the circumstances?
Sorry, Mr. Brennan. Your Honor, objection. Can we have a sidebar, please? It's important.
Okay.
Of course, because they don't want to remind the jury that it was a snowstorm, a blizzard, that they had nothing with them, that Canton Police doesn't normally deal with murders like this. They didn't have crime scene investigation. They did the best they could. They used whatever they had available. They gathered things. They had bags. They had Solo cups. They got as much evidence as they could from an officer of their own officer in an upsetting situation in the middle of a blizzard. So they did what they could to preserve. They thought that he was hit by a car. They didn't think that they're going to have to test this stuff for DNA for multiple people or whatever. I hope he gets to ask the question the right way.
The coloring in those cups, do you know firsthand what that comprised of, what the item was?
Are you asking me if I knew what the contents specifically of the cup
Yes.
were? No, I do not.
And so the red cups with the red spots stored in them, do you know the circumstances surrounding the effort made to try to preserve that evidence?
Can you just be more specific in what you mean by circumstances?
Sure. Do you know where those red cups came from?
I was told they were collected from the scene. I don't have firsthand knowledge of the collection.
And you weren't at the scene that morning, were you?
No, I was not.
Do you know what the circumstances or the challenges were that morning?
No, I'm not aware.
You said that you respond to active scenes and sometimes, like in this case, after the event happens?
Yes, that's correct.
Is there a difference when you're at an active scene as opposed to when you arrive at a scene that is past the event?
I would say multiple units are working at the same time, attempting to document, preserve, and collect evidence.
You were asked a few questions about the top back of the Lexus SUV.
Yes, that's correct.
When you were first asked the question, you were asked if you had studied that area, and you said you didn't recall if you looked at that area.
I did look at the area. I looked over the entire vehicle, but I didn't know anything specific in that area, no.
When you say you looked over the entire vehicle, did you look over the back of the vehicle as well?
Yes, the only part I did not look at was the roof of the vehicle.
Did you study all sides equally? Did you spend time with the entire vehicle?
I believe I made an effort, yes, to look at the entire vehicle.
When you studied the back of the vehicle, not the right side or left side, the back, middle, did you find any hair?
I did not note any hair, no.
Did you find any scratches?
The only scratches I noted were ones that I had spoken of previously on the right.
When you looked at the left side of that Lexus, did you find any dents or scratches?
Nothing that I noted, no.
Did you find any hair on that side of the car?
Not that I noted, no.
Did you find any dents, scratches, or hair anywhere but on other than the right side quarter of that Lexus?
I did not note any. I also did not examine the interior of the vehicle.
You said that you removed the hair. What do you do after you remove the hair?
The hair is placed into a small glassine envelope, then placed into a larger manila envelope, and then I signed and sealed it, gave it the appropriate case number and item number, and then secured it in our storage room.
Can that hair be further tested?
Yes.
Is that something you would do or a different person?
I don't perform testing on the hair. I performed a microscopic examination of it, and then additional testing can be performed by a different unit.
Let me ask you some questions about where you found the hair. You saw the two different angle pictures yesterday that you described.
Yes, I saw 2 pictures of that hair yesterday.
You were also shown some video where the car had snow and ice on it. Is water a conduit? Does water ever act as an adhesive?
Objection, Your Honor.
Watch the form of the question.
Okay. Why don't I show you a similar video that you were shown yesterday, but we've clarified it so it's more clear. I'm going to ask you to take a look at video 125. Can we stop that, please? And can you see that's 5:51:54 p.m. on 1/29/22?
Yes.
When you first saw this vehicle, it didn't have that snow on the right back near that taillight, did it?
Objection, Your Honor.
Ask it differently, Mr.
When
Brennan.
you saw this vehicle for the first time, did it have that snow packed into the back right of the car?
No, to the best of my recollection, there was no snow on the vehicle when I saw it.
And the hair where you found it, you see the red back taillight, the piece of red that's showing?
I do see that, yes.
In reference or relative to that red, was the hair to the right, left, below?
I don't recall at this time.
Okay. Do you see the ice or snow on the right side quarter panel of that Lexus?
I don't see it on the quarter panel. I'm not sure what you're speaking of.
If we could move that video forward, please, to 702. And then to 749, please. Stop. Go forward just a little bit, please. Stop. Okay. There's still remnants of snow. Did it look like that when you first saw it?
No, I believe I did not see any snow on the vehicle when I saw it.
You could fast forward, please. Thank you. You can take that down. Thank you. You were asked if you had any information about when damage occurred,
Yes, that's correct.
and you offered us you don't have no idea, right?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow that.
No, I do not know when the damage occurred.
You were asked whether or not damage existed on that car prior to that day, prior to January 29, 2022. You remember that question?
Yes.
Did you know there are ring videos of that car from January 28, 2022?
No.
I want to show you some photos and ask you a few questions. If we could have 147C, please. If you could close up. Do you remember what that's a picture of or a photograph of?
Yes.
What is it?
That is a tear that was on the right sleeve of the gray sweatshirt.
The threads coming from the side of that hole?
Yes.
Those threads, could you pull those threads and pull them out by hand if you wanted to?
Can you repeat that question?
If you pulled on those threads, could you pull thread from that hole if you wanted to?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow that.
I don't know. I didn't attempt to pull at them at all.
Did you examine them to see if they were woven or loose, those threads?
Yes.
Okay, and what were they?
They were loose. The fibers had started to separate up from the shirt. Separate and weave. I don't want to say they were separated from the shirt completely. The weave was starting to separate.
If we could have photograph 57. '57, 57. Are those the red cups that you saw?
Yes.
And what color is the fluid inside?
I noted there was red-brown stains inside.
Okay. And do you see that white object, the rag or the paper towel?
Objection, Your Honor. Scope.
Yes, sustained.
Well, you were asked about, you can take that down. You were asked about who had custody of items. You only have custody of items once you receive them, right?
Yes, that's correct.
If somebody had access to that rag and dipped it in those cups and then smeared it on the taillight, and you went and tested, would you potentially be able to find that red liquid on the taillight?
Objection, Your Honor.
It's sustained.
If strands of cloth were pulled from those clothing and placed in the taillight area, would you know when they were placed?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
When you get to a scene and you examine an area, if you don't see it firsthand, is there any way you can date when items are placed on an object?
I'm sorry, can you ask that one more time, please?
Sure. When you look at an area like a taillight, if you found blood or cloth or another item in that area, would you know when it was placed in that area?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow that.
I think there are really just too many variables to say either way.
And if an item like blood or cloth was placed in that area, is that something you would be looking for in your examination?
In which area?
Say the taillight, for example.
If there was an object placed in the taillight, would I be looking for that? I'd be looking for any item evidence. I'm not specifically looking for anything. I'm just looking for anything that would potentially be evidence.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Anything further, Mr. Alessi?
Briefly, Your Honor. If we could, Your Honor, have 147C republished. Would it be acceptable to move it along if Ms. Gill, oh, you have it? Okay. If we could have Ms. Gilman, I have just one question, Your Honor. Thank you very much, Ms. Gilman. 147C, I believe it.
Okay, I think you already had it up there.
No, it's this one. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Thank you, Your Honor. Do you recall Mr. Brennan asking you just moments ago a question about this depiction?
Yes,
And to be clear, this is the right sleeve of the gray hoodie, correct?
yes, that's correct.
You didn't perform any analysis of this area of the right hoodie, did you?
I performed damage analysis on each of those tears on the sleeve.
Right, but you didn't perform an analysis as to the source of that item, what it could be, correct?
Can you rephrase that question, please?
Sure. You didn't do any analysis of what could have caused that hole in the sweatshirt, did you?
No, I did not.
No further questions. Again, thank you for answering my question.
Your
All right,
Honor.
Ms. Hartnett, you are all set.
I wanted to correct something from the record yesterday. I wasn't sure when was appropriate to do that.
Okay, do you recall which lawyer asked you the question?
Yes, Mr. Alessi asked me the question.
Your Honor, are we going to proceed along with that?
So why don't I see your tag?
Thank you.
I hope the jury is paying attention that the defense does not want the witness to correct the statement that she made. What does that tell you? I hope they're paying attention. I've been looking on the socials, and they were saying that when Hank Brennan came up for recross, the jury was very paying to a lot of attention when he was acting like, "Do you know this? Do you know this?" If you dipped the T-shirt in the red stuff and wiped it on the car, like that, it was very sarcastic. But they were very stoic, and they were watching, and they got the point. They got it. Like they said, the jury definitely understood where he was going with that. Basically, that was Hank Brennan showing how ridiculous the cross-examine had been. Because the what ifs are gigantic. What if the moon is red and made of cheese? Yeah, the snow thing. The snow thing is actually a relevant question because they were yesterday in cross-examination. He thought it was very unlikely that Gladys would be there.
All right, so Ms. Hartnett, I am going to let you step down because questions from both sides are completed.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
you, though.
See, they're not letting her correct her statement, and that's not fair. She knows that she was misinterpreted and wants to correct something.
Okay,
It's
Mr. Brennan,
not
who is your
cool.
next witness?
Next witness is Dr. Scordi-Bello.
Okay.
Ma'am,
Yes.
thank you.
I did not hear that name very clear. Well, they'll be repeating it, hopefully. Now I'm so curious what she wanted to correct. We'll never know. Yep, sidebar number 3. You are correct there. I was just typing it.
Why don't I see counsel at sidebar, please?
Up, and now we got sidebar number 4. I guess the witness is taking too long to come forward. Maybe they weren't in the waiting area. Yeah, we shall see. We might be taking our morning break earlier than usual. I can't even imagine what they're talking about actually for these, unless it's about the next witness coming up. It's going to be a long day. I hope we get through a few witnesses. I'm very anxious to in the accident reconstruction information starts coming in. When we start to get the rest of the technical information on the retesting of the Lexus computer from Karen Reed's actual vehicle. Maybe a continuation of the previous sidebar without the witness. Maybe. Well, she wanted to correct something, and I just find that not fair. Like, she was asked a question by Alessi, and she wants to she realizes that it wasn't incorrect or whatever. But they don't want to leave it. They're going to leave it on the record the way it is.
Good.
All right, our witness.
You told us that the other state of the court and jury in the case now here to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, the whole truth.
I did. Good morning, doctor.
Oh, okay.
All right, Mr. Brennan, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Good morning. My name is Irini Scordi-Bello. That's spelled IRINI-SCORDI-BELLO. I am a medical examiner employed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
How long have you been a medical examiner for?
In the state of Massachusetts since December of 2016. In general, I have been a medical examiner since 2008.
Did you attend medical school?
Yes, I did.
Where did you attend medical school?
I completed medical school in New York City at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine, now known as ICANN School of Medicine.
Did you attend a residency?
Yes, I completed my residency in anatomic pathology at the Mount Sinai Hospital.
Is that what you specialized in during your residency?
Yes,
After your residency, did you go right to the medical examiner's office or did you work anywhere else?
after my residency, I completed a one-year fellowship in forensic pathology that was done at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner for the City of New York. And then I went to work as a medical examiner.
Is there a certain type of doctor you are? Do you have a particular?
Yes, I am a forensic pathologist.
What are your duties at the medical examiner's office?
My duties and responsibilities at the medical examiner's office include performing examinations and autopsies to determine the cause and manner of death in cases that fall under our jurisdiction.
How many other doctors work with you at the medical examiner's office?
I think there's close to 20 of us. I don't know the exact number.
The medical examiner's office, are you responsible for all counties in Massachusetts as far as doing examinations and autopsies?
No, I am, my primary location is in Westfield, Massachusetts, where one of our satellite offices is, and we cover Worcester County and the entire western part of the state. There's 3 offices in the state, the one in Westfield, the one in Boston, and the office at the Cape, in Cape Cod.
You mentioned that part of what you do is to try to determine manner and cause of death.
Yes.
I use the word autopsy generally without too much detail. Can you describe for the jury what the process is when you're trying to determine the manner and cause of death?
You would like me to explain what an autopsy is?
Please.
An autopsy is a large surgical procedure with 2 main parts. The external examination, which is an examination of the outside of the body, where we document physical characteristics such as hair color, eye color. We document any identifying features such as scars or tattoos, height, weight. And then we also document any signs of disease or any signs of injury on the body. The second part of the autopsy is the internal examination, where we make surgical type incisions on the body and we examine the internal organs of the neck, the chest, the abdomen and the pelvis, as well as the head and the brain. Part of the autopsy procedure, and this depends on the kind of case we're doing an autopsy on, might include other studies such as taking evidence, toxicology, which is done on almost every case, and any additional dissections or any additional steps we might feel we have to take. But that's in general what an autopsy is.
Do you ever seek the assistance of any other doctors or professionals that have specialties in your determination in an autopsy about manner and cause of death?
Yes, absolutely. We often, well, like I mentioned before, we perform toxicology on almost all our cases, and those samples are sent to the toxicology state lab. We also have a board certified neuropathologist and cardiac pathologist in our office, and very often we will consult with them in determining cause and manner of death.
Are cause of death and manner of death the same or two different things?
They're two completely different things.
Can you explain to us what the difference is between the two of them?
Yes. Cause of death refers to the disease or the injury that initiates a sequence of events that ultimately leads to someone's death. So that disease or that injury can be a natural disease such as atherosclerosis or coronary artery disease, or it can be some sort of injury. The manner of death has to do with the circumstances that led to the death. So there are 5 manners of death that we use in our practice. The most common one is actually natural. Natural means that the person's cause of death, the disease that killed them, was due to natural causes. And that would include heart disease, diabetes, cancer. All those are natural processes that take place in the body that lead to death. And so the manner of death is natural. If trauma or an injury is involved, then we have to decide then let me back up. If trauma or an injury is involved, then the manner of death is no longer natural. And therefore, it could be that the trauma was inflicted in an accidental manner, in which case the manner becomes accident. If it was inflicted by another person with the intent to cause harm, then the manner becomes a homicide. And if the trauma, and when I say trauma, I should include both physical and chemical trauma, chemical when it comes to intoxications due to drugs, etc. If the trauma was self-inflicted, then the manner of death is suicide. So we have natural, accident, homicide, suicide, and then the 5th one is what we call undetermined or could not be determined. That is when the circumstances in a case are not entirely known or clear to us, and the information that we have does not support one manner of death over another. In that case, we classify the manner of death as undetermined.
When you are conducting an autopsy and making an analysis and attempting to reach a conclusion, you said when you looked at in a case, is your case and what you do different than procedure in a prosecution's case?
Can you repeat the question? I'm not sure I understand.
I can. When you're making your determinations about cause or manner of death, do you have any limitations?
Okay, so the cause of death is something that is determined by the autopsy. That is my opinion or our office opinion as to the disease or injury that led to that person's death. So that is, I don't have any major limitations unless we're dealing with cases where, the body's decomposed and we're not able to do, all the testing necessary. But in most cases, the cause of death depends on my findings during the autopsy. The manner of death, yes, there are limitations because it's circumstance driven. And so the circumstances might not be known to us at the time of the autopsy. They might not be known to us ever. And therefore, while the cause of death is my medical opinion, the manner of death depends on information I get from other people.
Are you always able to reach a conclusion on manner of death?
No, that's why I said that in cases that we cannot, that manner of death is classified as undetermined.
I want to now ask you about whether or not you examined John O'Keefe.
Yes, I did the autopsy on Mr. O'Keefe.
When you examined Mr. O'Keefe, did you work with a team or by yourself?
No, we always work in a team. The team is made up of the medical examiner and a medical examiner's assistant that helps with the actual performance of the autopsy, especially when we examine the head. And then, of course, we work with the toxicology lab and, in this particular case, our neuropathologist.
The medical examiner's office, is that a division of the Massachusetts State Police?
No,
Is it a division of the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office?
no,
Is the medical examiner's office independent?
yes,
When you conduct an autopsy, are representatives of law enforcement or district attorney's office able or allowed to attend an autopsy?
yes, they're usually allowed to attend the autopsy if they wish.
Is that an uncommon practice?
No, it's not uncommon.
Would you remember when your autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe occurred?
Yes, I performed the autopsy on January 31st of 2022.
If you have notes?
Yes, I do.
I think you'll be able to use them, but we'll just want to indicate that you're reading from your notes if that's the case. Thank you.
So you can use your notes, doctor, just.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. When you began the autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe, do you know who, if any, representatives from the Massachusetts State Police or the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office were present?
I don't remember their names. I do believe there were two individuals, and every person who attends an autopsy has to sign a log, and their names would be logged in our records. I don't remember their names.
What is the role of law enforcement relative to the actual physical autopsy? Do they have any role?
No, they're not part of the autopsy. They don't have a role. Their role is to observe. Sometimes they will ask questions, and based on my findings, they might, go on and do their investigation.
Does your office photograph things of interest like injuries on the person that you're doing the autopsy on?
Yes, we do.
Is law enforcement allowed to take their own photographs as well?
Yes,
Did you in fact memorialize your findings in this case?
I did.
Are there a number of different ways in which you memorialize your findings?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I took notes, physical notes, pen and paper. There's a report that's issued within 90 days of the completion of the autopsy, and then photographs, digital photographs.
You mentioned a report is due in 90 days. Is that often referred to as an autopsy report?
Yes.
Why 90 days?
That is the standard that is set by the National Association of Medical Examiners. We're part of NAME, and therefore we try to have a finalized report for all our cases within 90 days, because we know that families are waiting for these reports, and therefore we do our best to finish a report within 90 days.
Did you in fact complete a so-called autopsy report in this case?
Yes, I did.
In addition to the autopsy report, well, included in the autopsy report, do you make handwritten notations about locations of injuries?
Yes.
And share with us, how's that done? Is there a picture or a graph?
There's a diagram, a body diagram that we use to mark the location of injuries.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
May I?
Yes.
Do you generally recognize what these documents are?
Yes, these are my diagrams from Mr. O'Keefe's autopsy.
And could you just very basically describe each one of them?
Some of them. Yes, the first one is a body diagram. A lot of things have been whited out, but it's the diagram that I would use to make note of any injuries. The second one is a diagram of the face and the skull. I would also use this diagram to make notes as to any injuries on the face. And the third one is a diagram of the inside of the skull, what we call the base of the skull, as well as different views of the brain itself. Again, I would make notes to point out different injuries.
As you were noting injuries in your autopsy report, these diagrams, they start off blank
They start off blank and then they're filled out as we go along.
and you fill out all the details you find important in your report?
Correct.
For reference, and to assist us, I have some blank diagrams that I may ask you to point out things on the blank diagram for us.
Okay.
And Your Honor, I'd ask permission. I've spoken to defense to use these simply as a chalk.
Sure.
No objection, Your Honor.
Before you begin an autopsy, do you seek any medical records if available?
Yes. When a case is called into our office, depending on the time and the day that it is called in, our intake department, who are the people initially on the phone taking the information, will start asking for both medical records as well as police reports. So in the morning, when we start the autopsy, it's possible that we have some records. Sometimes if a decedent is brought to us from the hospital, there might be some records that come along with the body. But to answer your question, yes, we always ask for medical records, what we call PCP records, which are primary care physician records, any records from a hospital where the decedent may have been, and investigative reports, police reports.
Do you recall whether you had access to John O'Keefe's medical records from Good Samaritan Hospital?
I did have access, yes, in the day, I believe the day of and the following day.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Subject to any later reactions, I would move the Good Samaritan medical records.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 155. Thank you.
This time I would move for identification all photos of Mr. O'Keefe's injuries at Good Samaritan Hospital just for identification.
Okay.
Exhibit JJ for ID.
Further, this time I'd move for identification all OCME, Office of Medical Examiner photos.
Exhibit KK for ID.
Your Honor, at this time I'd move all CSSS autopsy photos for identification.
May I just have an understanding of the evidence?
With the court's permission, Ms. Gilman, if you could put up the diagram, full body. Could enlarge that a little more. Thank you very much. Could you explain this to us?
Yes, this is the diagram that we use during every autopsy. As you can see, we note the name of the decedent. Every case has its own number. In this case, it was 22-1697. And then we take note of, as I mentioned, during the external examination, physical characteristics such as hair, eyes, teeth. And then on this diagram, we would note any scars we see on the body, any tattoos we see on the body, any injuries we see on the body, and any therapeutic interventions. Those would be things that are sometimes done either by emergency medical personnel or at the hospital. Everything would be noted on this diagram.
Now, if you could take us through, I'm going to ask you, we'll go body part by body part, if that's okay. I'm going to ask you to begin with Mr. O'Keefe's face, the front of his face. And if you could enlarge that, Ms. Gilman, thank you very much. Did you notice any injuries on Mr. O'Keefe's face? And if so, could you, I think there's a pointer available for you, doctor? If you could point out on the diagram what you observed.
So on the diagram, well, first of all, there was medical intervention on Mr. O'Keefe that included an endotracheal tube that had been placed to help him breathe. But once all the intervention, all the medical devices were removed, I observed on his right upper eyelid a 1 centimeter laceration. So as we're looking at the diagram, this is the right side and this is the left side. So on his right eyelid, there was a small laceration. I also observed abrasions on the anterior and the left aspect of the nose. So the nose would be here on the front and the left aspect. Abrasions are scrapes. Lacerations are tears in the skin. I should probably explain that. Then there was some bleeding and some swelling of the eyelids of both eyes.
Does that complete your analysis?
For the front of the face, correct, yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Doctor, I'm showing you a photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, this is a photograph of Mr. O'Keefe's face.
Does that photograph depict any of the observations or injuries you made that you just described to the jury?
Yes, it shows the small laceration that I noted during the autopsy on the right eyelid. You can see some of the swelling and some of the bleeding over his eyelids. And that's pretty much all I can see because it's a side view.
Is there an apparatus?
There is what we call an endotracheal tube, as well as a C collar or a C stabilization collar. That's something that would have been placed on him by medical personnel.
All right, this is the evidence I asked for the instruction.
Okay. All right. So, folks, during the testimony of Dr. Scordi-Bello, photos will be introduced to you. They're photographs of John O'Keefe that Dr. Scordi-Bello from the autopsy. So you'll have them in the jury room with you. I'll put them in an envelope, or I'll ask that they be put in an envelope. So if you don't want to look at them now, you don't have to. At some point, we'd ask that you make sure you look at it. These photos are not pleasant, and you may find that they're graphic. But what's important for you to know is that your verdict must not in any way be influenced by the fact that these photographs may be unpleasant or graphic. The defendant is entitled to a verdict based solely on the evidence and not based on pity or sympathy for Mr. O'Keefe, which might be occasioned by these photographs. So consider the photographs only as they draw your attention to a clinical, medical status, or to the nature of Mr. O'Keefe's injuries, or to the nature of the incident itself. So they'll be displayed up on the screen for you as well.
The last exhibit is Exhibit 156.
Thank you.
Ms. Gilman, could you show the jury? And Doctor, can you point out the injuries you were describing by using the diagram, or when you were using the diagram?
So the laceration, the small laceration that I previously described would be here on the right upper eyelid of Mr. O'Keefe. You can see some discoloration that's bleeding under his eyelid and what I would describe as swelling. The endotracheal tube and the neck collar are also present here. And the other injury, which I noted, was on the front and left side of his nose, which you cannot see here because this is looking at the right side of his face.
Take that down, please. You mentioned that there was something about his eyes that was notable.
Yes, there was bleeding or hemorrhage, as we call it, on the eyelids, as well as swelling.
I'm going to ask you more detail about that later, but was that observation important in your ultimate diagnosis or conclusions? Yes. May I approach your arm?
Yes.
I'm showing you another photograph. Do you recognize that?
Yes, this is another picture showing Mr. O'Keefe's face. Again, the medical intervention is present, and you can see more clearly now the discoloration on the upper eyelids.
Is this vantage point helpful for your ultimate conclusions and diagnosis?
Yes.
Your Honor, move this one down.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 157.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show this to the jury.
Yes.
P645, please. Doctor, could you point out what was significant regarding Mr. O'Keefe's eye area?
So I noted that there was discoloration, that's bleeding, that's blood, that's under those eyelids. The eyelids appear puffy, that's what we call edema or swelling. And then also there were two abrasions, two scratches on Mr. O'Keefe's nose. You can see one here and then the other one on the more front part of his nose.
Okay, could you take that down, please? If we could move down a bit to the chest and stomach area, did you make any observations about this area, Dr. Scordi-Bello?
The observations that I made on the chest were that there was, as I mentioned before, there were defibrillator pads on the body, and there was an abrasion that's very commonly seen in people who have undergone resuscitation. Internally, that abrasion and the whole resuscitation apparatus was associated with some anterior rib fractures, which are also seen in cases of resuscitation, but I didn't make any other notes in terms of trauma on the chest or abdomen.
I'd like to move to the arms and the hands. If we could come down just a little bit. Let's begin with Mr. O'Keefe's hand or hands. Did you make any observations regarding Mr. O'Keefe's hand or hands?
Yes. On his upper right arm, I noted that he had a superficial abrasion. So it would have been You can
Can we move that down a little bit?
move it
please?
down a little bit. Yeah, thank you. You seem to be doing a very good job. Okay, somehow doesn't want to
Sorry
work.
if that's not working well.
It's projecting here, but not on the actual picture.
Maybe a second pointer?
I can do it here.
Okay, great.
So on the right upper medial arm, that would be the inner side of his arm, there was a superficial abrasion. Again, that's a scrape. Then on his right posterior arm and forearm, so not exactly on this aspect of the arm, but on the back side of the arm, which would be in the back of the diagram, there were multiple abrasions, which I described as ranging from 2 to 3 millimeters and up to 7 centimeters. Then, yeah, if you could move the diagram down, please. Again, there is a back to this diagram. I don't know if you could put that on the screen. There we go. So this is now the right side and this is the left. I noted that there were 2 bruises on the back of his right hand. Also a faint scratch on the back of his left hand. And then moving down to the lower extremities or the legs, if you could please show the front. There was a small abrasion, a small scrape on the side of his right knee.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Doctor, I'm handing you a photograph. Do you recognize it from that photograph?
Yes,
What is it?
this is the back of Mr. O'Keefe's right hand, I believe.
Is that fair and accurate depiction of how his hand appeared when you examined him?
Yes.
Will this is evidence, please?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay. Exhibit 158.
With the court's permission, I'd show P647 to the jury.
Okay.
And could you explain, you said there were 2 bruises. Could you point those out for us?
Yes, there's one here and one here.
Did you attempt to assess those, determine whether you could conclude or opine on a cause of those?
No, I did not. Well, I take that back. I'm sorry. So this particular one has 2 small little pinpoint defects in the middle, which we sometimes see when emergency personnel tries to get access to a vein for fluids, for intravenous fluids. So, but I did not put that in my report. I just described it as a contusion.
Is it common to see that type of coloration where medical personnel put intravenous or other types of support into somebody's hand?
Yes, it's very common for the skin to bruise when someone tries to get access to a blood vessel.
The other coloration that is unrelated to those 2 small points, would you have a description of what those are?
No.
I'd also like to show you exhibit number 1. Exhibit number 1, please. Thank you. You use the word superficial. What does that mean?
Superficial means that the abrasion is on the superficial layers of the skin, usually the epidermis and sometimes the dermis, but there's no penetration of the skin.
When you're assessing to determine whether there's any penetration, do you measure the length of the wound or
Well,
the abrasion?
Penetration would be measuring the depth. If there was actual penetration, I would have to measure how deep into the skin. For example, when we assess stab wounds, we have to measure the depth of the wound. In this particular case, you can see that these are scrapes or scratches, and there's no exposed underlying fat or muscle. And therefore, to answer your question, I measured their length and gave a range, but I did not measure their depth.
As a routine practice during an autopsy, doctor, if there was penetration or depth, would you, as a routine, measure that?
I would make a note of it.
Are there any such notes in any of your autopsy findings or reports about depth?
No, I did not make a note on the depth of these ones.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to how those superficial abrasions occurred?
I do not.
And I asked you about the hand, which we just saw, and I should ask you the same question. Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty how that coloration, aside from the medical intervention, do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty how the other discoloration happened on Mr. O'Keefe's hand?
I can state to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that that's a bruise, a contusion, but I cannot tell you how it occurred.
And to summarize finally what we've been through so far regarding the scrape on Mr. O'Keefe's right eye, can you provide an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty how that scrape occurred?
No, I cannot.
You mentioned for us that when you looked at Mr. O'Keefe's legs, you observed bruising on his, or a small scratch on his right knee.
Correct.
I don't want to summarize it. Can you describe that
Can we turn the
more
lights on,
specifically?
please?
Thank you.
Yes, I described it as a 0.5 centimeter abrasion on the right lateral knee.
Did you see any marks or abrasions on his left knee?
No, I did not.
Was the mark scratch on Mr. O'Keefe's right knee on the inside or the outside of the knee?
It was on the lateral aspect, which would be the outside.
Thank you. May I approach?
Yes.
Doctor, I'm handing you a photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes,
What is it?
this is a picture of Mr. O'Keefe's lower extremities, his legs.
Is it a fair and accurate depiction of how his knee appeared to the autopsy?
Yes.
All right, we'll go to the evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
159. Thank you.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show the jury 9467.
Yes.
You used the word lateral and you talked about abrasion or a scrape. Could you look at this photograph and could we enlarge it, Ms. Gilman, and could you point out to the jury and explain what it is that you saw?
Yes, you can see the abrasion here with a little bit of adjacent discoloration, but this is what I was describing.
If you could zoom back out, please. And you didn't see any similar type bruising or abrasions on the left knee?
No,
During your autopsy, did you notice any injuries internally to Mr. O'Keefe's rib area?
Yes, I did note that there were rib fractures on the anterior, that would be the front, of his fourth and fifth ribs.
And so would that be his left or right side?
It would be both the right and the left, and it would be the part of the rib that is closer to the sternum.
Is there a number of ribs that had fractures, or are they connected as one?
The fourth and the fifth, both on the right and the left, close to the sternum.
Have you, in your experience, seen ribs fractured during first aid or medical intervention?
Very often, yes.
Given your experience and your study of Mr. O'Keefe's body, do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty how those rib fractures were obtained?
I believe those rib fractures were due to resuscitation.
And you have that opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
Yes.
I'd like to show you a different diagram, one of the head area. If we could enlarge the bottom right. Thank you. Using that diagram, could you assist us, doctor, and explain to us any observations you made about the back of John O'Keefe's head?
Yes. The main observation was a laceration that is a skin tear on the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head to the right of midline. So this would be the midline. The laceration was somewhere here, is what we call the right occipital area. And associated with that, there was an abrasion over it that would have been here. So this was what we call a compound injury, an abraded laceration.
We'll turn in a few moments to your autopsy observations about the inside of Mr. O'Keefe's skull. But first, I want to just show you a photograph relative to what you described to us. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you a photograph you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, this is a picture taken at the time of autopsy. This is the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head. The hair has been shaved off so that the injury can be clearly photographed, and it's a laceration with an associated abrasion.
Thank you. Your Honor, move this into evidence.
Okay.
No objection, Your Honor.
Sure, that's gentlemen, please. When you examine the laceration, do you measure it?
Yes,
And did you measure it in this case?
I did measure it.
How long was the laceration?
I measured it as 2.5 centimeters, which is close to an inch.
Do you examine a person's body before you begin to intrude? Do you examine the outside of a person's body first, or is there a certain procedure or order?
Yes, the external examination is done first, and the internal examination is done second.
I want to show you that photograph that you just recognized, and I would like you to explain what you see to the jury. Ms. Gilman, with your assistance, thank you.
This is the laceration that I noted, and this is the scrape that's associated with it.
Take that down, please. After you make observations, what are your next steps in an autopsy?
The internal examination, after the external is performed and pictures are taken, then we proceed with the internal examination of both the, as I mentioned before, the torso, the body, as well as the head.
I'd like you to take us through the internal examination. Did you have a chance to look internally behind the laceration you saw on the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head?
Yes,
And when you did that, could you describe for us what you saw?
yes. The way we examine the head is we make an incision with a scalpel behind the ear from one side to the other. That allows us to reflect or pull back the scalp, and that will expose the skull underneath. We do this carefully so that we don't disfigure clearly the face. And when we reflected or when we pulled back the scalp, I noted that there was blood, what we call hemorrhage, under the laceration or associated with the laceration on the back of the right head. And then furthermore, there were skull fractures associated with that laceration, abrasion on the right side of the head.
Were the skull fractures in the same or different area?
The skull fractures were in multiple areas of the skull, what we call the base of the skull. Imagine the base of the skull is sort of a bowl, and the brain sits on top or in the bowl. When the brain is removed, you can have a very good view of the base of the skull. So when the brain was removed and we were able to look at the base of the skull, I noted that there were multiple fractures that appeared to be originating from the area of the laceration, or what would correspond to the area of the laceration.
When you made your examination of the fractures in the skull, did that lead you to your opinion, or was there more you needed to look at before you came to an opinion about the cause of death?
Well, that was part of the findings that led to my opinion. But yes, I removed the brain, and as is our protocol, I saved the brain in a special solution called formalin that allows the brain to become a little harder so that our neuropathologist in Boston could go ahead and examine it. Because when I did look at the brain, I noted that there were injuries. There was bleeding on top of the brain. And therefore, I saved it. The brain ultimately went to our Boston office, and our neuropathologist, Dr. Stonebridge, examined it and issued a report.
Did you engage in any type of analysis on your own about any injury to Mr. O'Keefe's brain?
I noted the kind of injuries I could see superficially on the brain, and I have looked at the brain after it was fixed and pictures of it, but I did not issue a report on it. The whole point was for our neuropathologist to examine it closely and issue a more detailed report.
I have a few more photos. Would now be an appropriate time for a break, Your Honor?
Yes. So, jurors, why don't we take 15 or 20 minutes, okay?
Will all rise for the jury?
Well, here we go. Here we go. What a time to start watching, right? Yep. Here we go. There we go. Actually, I should keep that up just in case. Welcome. Hey, tomorrow, kiddo. Yes, I think this is number 5. I do believe. Wait, let me go back. Number 5 it is. Good catch there, Rocky Couch. Hello, Jasper. Welcome. I see some coming in, some heading out. It is slow going today, but I am very interested in the medical examiner's testimony because there was a lot of hubble from what I heard in trial 1 of her not actually testifying what the cause of death was and whether or not John O'Keefe was hit with the vehicle. Now, they can test to the wounds and what kinds of things can cause the wounds, but they can't actually say what happened. Like, she wasn't there. She can go, remember the piece of evidence when Jessica Hyde, the cell tech, the forensic cell expert, the professor of this technology who teaches on it and stuff. And she said, I cannot take one artifact and say how anything happened without taking other things in to account. So it doesn't stand alone. Same thing with a lot of this, they're asked a direct question and they've always got to say no, because without considering other facts of the situation and other facts and evidence, how could they make a determination? Yep, fractures in the skull and a brain bleed. Yeah. And I appreciate that they're not displaying the autopsy pictures out of respect for John O'Keefe himself and his family, his loved ones. Yep. Let me see. Last time I tried to do this, my number sign didn't work, and it said 33 instead of number 3. There we go. Sidebar number 5. Well, I'm getting some more coffee. I'm getting comfortable with the fan here. It's a lovely day here on the East Coast. 64 degrees. Late morning. Not very sunny. It's still a very cloudy day. We've had rain yesterday. We had a thunderstorm. Be kind of dreary when it's gray like that out. Well, the coffee's keeping me awake. And the fruit. I had blackberries and raspberries this morning. They're delicious. I love spring. There's so many. I have a farm with and orchards. Several orchards actually right near me. And so there's a lot of spring and summer fruits, which I enjoy. Oh, and in the fall, tons and tons of apples. Like at least 10 different varieties with the orchards. The one closest to my house does peaches and nectarines, and they do sour cherries, and I make a sour cherry barbecue sauce. Sour cherries are sour. They're not like big cherries. But they do make an excellent barbecue sauce. They also make excellent vinegars too. Yeah, just a little bit of culinary goofiness there. Anything to keep myself going here with the trial. Although Hank Brennan is not as boring as Mr. Alessi, but I'm just bracing myself for the cross. I started watching over on Twitch, and she said the word brain. Yep, she did. So I was looking through the socials to see what was going on, and I did catch one of the Law and Order editors talking about the AI of P. Diddy's case, and the only one that was out so far was the prosecutor. But however, she states that they're definitely going to do the defense opening statements, and they're going to do the witnesses also. They plan to keep doing it. So because they can't do the trial, this is going to be how they report. I think this is like so cool, but also a little terrifying to me. It does make me feel a little unsettled. Although, like, this week has been AI week for me. I'm learning so much. Like, I opened the stream this morning saying that I had plugged everything in that I could of this case, all the evidence, the history from before the first trial, everything that's been entered for this trial, as many documents as I could find, and just to see how everything was going. And one thing that the AI did point out is the turn since trial number one, that although the conspiracy and the lines are drawn out there between the free Karen Reed people that believe in the conspiracy that she's been set up, and those that are, looking at it differently and think that she's actually guilty already without all the evidence being entered. They just said that the trend towards actually looking at the credibility of what evidence was turned, and that they're actually steering away from the bad end. They do it. Most people would admit the investigation was horrible and Michael Proctor had made mistakes, but it doesn't get rid of the cell phone data and or the Lexus data and anything, of the concrete evidence, the timeline and probabilities. They said that people are paying much more attention to those fine details, which was encouraging for me, because that's how it should be. When Hank Brennan did his opening statements and he said facts, science, and data, and I was like, yes, 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 because when it comes down to it, that's what they have to look at, and then it's up to the jury to decide what weight to put on this information and how credible the witness testimonies are. Yes, these injuries were released before, Maggie, in the first trial. And they have been in much of the documentation back and forth, and the autopsy report was entered in the evidence, affidavit testimony from trial one. Yeah. However, Hank Brennan wasn't gonna call her, but he is. So I wonder what he's got up his sleeve. Hello, Liam. How are you today? We're just hanging out with the fan while they do another sidebar. I mean, they did say sidebar, right? Not break. I didn't mishear, did I? Anybody? Anybody? Right, Couch? It was sidebar. It wasn't break. Because, like, they didn't do the morning break, did they? So she did not describe dog bites? Not so far she hasn't, Maggie, that I heard. Oh, they did say break tomorrow, kiddo. Okay, so we got like 15 minutes to kill. Ay. Okay. It could have been either. I just saw the fan. Oh, okay, so it's not sidebar number 5 then. I got to delete. I don't think I can delete my own messages, can I? Nope, I can't. I can in nope, not in Twitch. It doesn't let me. All right. Well, so we'll just have to make note. 15 to 20-minute break, she said. Okay. You just got up and warmed the last of your coffee before tonight's delivery. At least you got the coffee coming tonight, so you won't get stuck. Hi, Teresa. Yes, you can. It removed it. Yeah, it did remove it on YouTube, but I didn't see it remove it on the Twitch side. That's what I was talking about. But thank you, Teresa. Yeah. Yeah, it won't get rid of it. Yeah, yeah. Jury disregard the sidebar. Are you able to delete my message couch with your reach? I don't think so, right? Because I've got that little creator bar there. Darn it. You'd think it would let me delete my own, but no. Yeah, it won't let me delete it either, which is like bizarre. Anyway, you and I are keeping track over there, so we'll remember, right? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I can be trusted with it. But I hope everybody's having a good morning. I was very grateful that Mr. Alessi didn't go on for the whole morning, with the roundy, because that gets to be very, very tedious. Yeah, more sidebars is right. Hey, you're back. Hello, Jared. What are you up to? Thought you were heading off to Mount Fiji or something, or Fuji. Is it Fuji? It's Fuji. Sorry, not Fiji. Yeah, they do. They need to apply for a new liquor license for the courtroom. Absolutely. Although this is actually the morning break. So, yeah, gosh, it's late. Yeah. It is the morning break, so it'll be like 15, 20 minutes, and then just like trying to think of something that we can discuss. And I said this morning I had loaded everything into an AI. What would you guys want to ask the AI since it has all the information on the case? If you could ask it anything, what would you want to ask it? Because I have it right here and I could look. We could play a game. Let's see. So, when I was looking over the information, one of the key things for this second-degree murder charge and that Karen Reed is facing, it's the bot goes and analyzes the evidence. So they said for the prosecutor, some of the evidence supporting guilt in this case would be vehicle damage and physical evidence, like that her SUV, her Lexus SUV, exhibited a shattered passenger side taillight, dents, scratches, and what appeared to be human hair on the rear bumper. Forensic analysis linked glass fragments and a shoe found at the scene to the vehicle. Prosecutors argued this damage aligns with a collision that Karen Reed perhaps backed into John O'Keefe. though the defense claims it could stem from unrelated incidents like anything else. Okay. But more hardcore than that is the phone data and the timeline based on Mr. Ian Whiffen and Jessica Hyde, and also Mr. Garino. Cell phone records show that Reed's device automatically connected to O'Keefe's home Wi-Fi at 12:38 a.m., placing her at his residence after the alleged incident. Missed calls and voicemails and texts between Reed and O'Keefe's phone escalated from accusatory to panicked in the hours preceding his death. There's also the paramedic's testimony of the alleged confession. Paramedic Timothy Nuttall testified that Reed repeatedly stated, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him." That was actually collaborated by Jen McCabe. Her erratic behavior in some of the statement, although not clearly, by Carrie Roberts, okay, and also by a second paramedic and a third paramedic on the scene. The defense disputes the consistency of this count, challenging Mr. Nuttall because he said 2 in one report and then said 3 in another. The Commonwealth kind of homed in on that, actually speaking in an interview, stating that she realizes she did say that, but she doesn't think that she said it as often as the police are saying she did, that law enforcement is saying that she did. And she's saying she said it in a different tone, like a question mark. However, we could hear, on the videos that they've been playing, that she was very upset at the time. Jen McCabe actually testified that she tried to get her to stop saying it because she was so upset. She didn't want her to say anything incriminating while she was in such a state. The prosecution's narrative, they claim that Reed struck O'Keefe in a fit of anger after a night of drinking, leaving him to sub-zero temperatures outside of a Canton home. Phone data suggests that O'Keefe never entered the residence, supporting the theory that he was struck outside. The incident happened outside. And they're using the cell phone data of the battery temperature, which is new to this case. All right. The defense has laid out a police conspiracy and allegations. They have asserted that O'Keefe was fatally beaten by police officers who resided at home and were parties, and that local law enforcement framing her to cover up for them. They highlight the involvement of multiple officers at the scene and alleged evidence tampering, that everybody knew each other. They have pointed to inconsistencies in testimony, witnesses that testified in the first trial and or the grand jury not remembering exact words, kind of twisting a little bit out here and there, but actually using that against the witnesses, trying to throw doubt on their credibility. The defense challenged, like I said, Timothy Nuttall's recollection of Reed's "I hit him," noting discrepancies in the first trial. He said that she said it twice, and now she's saying she said it 3 times. And however, it doesn't appear in a written report. Some of the EMTs testified they don't do written reports, and they don't after the fact. And someone who is not the actual person they're taking care of, maybe not everything that they say would be in the report anyway, unless it was relevant to the case. And since they were concentrating on trying to revive John O'Keefe, they were not investigating on how he got into the condition he was. Probability assessment. The strength of the prosecution's evidence puts it at about 75% likelihood that Reed did strike with her vehicle John O'Keefe. However, how it happened, or is still unknown. reasonable doubt factors that are keeping that number low are the inconsistent witness statements accounts, the length of time that has passed, people saying something slightly different, the lack of actual direct evidence, in other words, video footage of her doing it. It reduces the confidence that she's 100% guilty. The first trial's hung jury underscores those uncertainties. We all watch that happen in real time, you know. The defense counters some of the physical evidence of the SUV, stating that the damage occurred earlier. There's video of her backing up into John's car. However, the taillights don't align, and there's no taillight in the snow when she pulls away. And yet when she pulls away from that incident, the video does pick up the taillight is extremely damaged. So if it happened at that time, enough for the cover to show white, where are the pieces? Like, they would have fell to the snow right there, and they're not. You could see on the video they did not. You know, so it's a little odd, you know, but that is what they push back with. You know, so like these new AI tools are pretty cool for doing research and analysis, you know. New, from what I understand of the first trial, what's new is the clips that the Hank Brennan keeps admitting with Karen Reed's own words being used against her every time the defense brings up a point. And they do so hard, and it takes them hours, and then Hank Brennan comes back and plays the clip that just demolishes what they said, like she's saying the opposite of what they're saying. Very unfortunate for them. The other digital forensic analysis of O'Keefe's phone, the battery temperature, a deeper analysis, the dismantling of the search at 2:27, making the real time when it happened at 6 in the morning. Yeah. Oh, it just moved again. Are they back or not? Yep, probable cause. If I want to take a look at your rest of your trip, check Discord. I will. I definitely will. Once everything comes back. But right now, I have to just keep until they come back from court. You know what I mean? Thank you, though, Jared. I appreciate the share. Yeah, a lot of people do believe that she possibly hit him. I've never said that I think it's intentional, but I do think her cover up of anything that pertains to that she might have done it has been intentional. I don't think it started out that way, but yeah, it is now. But I am loving this AI tool. It actually does analysis. And here's the other thing. When there's nobody to talk to about true crime and I've got some questions about a case and I want to run some theories about to someone, like the AI bot will talk to me about it. I kid you not. No, I kid you not. It gives me answers. I ask it questions. It gives me answers. It asks me questions. I might be falling for a bot. At least in true crime, anyway. The cover-up is definitely intentional. The initial injury may have been emotionally motivated, but that doesn't negate her culpability. Exactly. If accountability had been taken when she was first charged with manslaughter, we wouldn't be here. We would not be here. But it's a lot of things that happen. And it did make for some bad behavior on the part of investigators that she would not plead. Yeah. I mean, not everybody acted professionally. The mistakes were made. But Canton Police Department did turn over the investigation. They knew there was a conflict of interest. We had a Kent police officer who was dead. near the property or actually on the property of another well-decorated Canton police officer. There was definitely a conflict. There's also, you don't want to be investigating the death of one of your own. So that's why when the crime lab person was testifying and it kept saying Norfolk, because the neighboring police department took over some of the evidence and some of the lab work and all of that, prevent the conflict of interest. And also because they were thinking the investigation, because it was a homicide possibly, it did get turned over to the state police. That is the policy in that area, which is how Michael Proctor and several others got involved. They were not Canton police officers, And so with all of these people involved, hence the conspiracy, trying to tie everybody together because everybody knows everybody. It does make for a good, kind of change the narrative story. It's funny though. I had read somewhere that was not the story in the beginning. That didn't happen till last year, in the trial, before the trial. Let me look at some of the other stuff that the bot had pulled up. One of the biggest points that the bot is saying of the change in the tone of this trial is Reed's statements herself being entered. And it also helps. The defense is definitely going hard on the scrutiny of lead investigator Michael Proctor, trying with as many witnesses as they can to bring in the name, get the name in front of the juror, get what happened in front of the jury, and to discredit the whole investigation. They are still going to bring in some experts. We don't know if they're going to bring in an expert to go against the digital evidence, but we do know they have their own accident reconstruction team. We've all heard a lot about ARCA. Yeah. We've also had their dog bite. Dr. Marie Russell's going to come in, Judge Cannone did actually limit third-party culprit testimony and did not let it be mentioned very strongly in the opening. They could mention it, but not for the youngest one, Colin Albert, and that they could not bring it up with witnesses back and forth unless they had some kind of evidence or some lead actually to go there. But Judge Cannone did not let them mention the ARCA in their opening statements because it's still going back and forth. There has to be a voir dire before that testimony. They did not show up with text messages or any correspondence. And Judge Cannone was put off again in trying to get to the bottom of that matter. One of the biggest changes is Hank Brennan going for consciousness of guilt, using Karen Reed's own actions and words against her, to show that she was always acting like she was guilty and covering something up. And also his reordering of how he's approaching it, like not doing a chronological dump of the evidence, like through the timeline, but doing something very clever by entering the evidence with a witness and all, and then re-collaborating that evidence and the witness statements with another witness, and just like building on it, like over and over. We saw that with the EMTs and Jen McCabe and everybody from the first scene. Like everybody with collaborative testimony, step by step, building the bricks there, and then adding in whatever physical evidence, hardcore evidence that they had at the same time, videos, sounds, recordings, and then icing on the cake, Karen Reed's own words at the time. They're also focusing, like he said, on facts, science, data. That seems to be how he's doing it. And he's trying to get that in understandable, reinforced chunks to the jury. And he keeps reminding them of it, which is key. Key for them to understand the timeline and the process, not letting them forget. The public, like I said, its perception has changed. The second trial, restructured presentation and that renewed focus on key evidence had made the public more attentive to the legal process, more engaged with the details.
You are unmuted.
More polarized in their opinions about her guilt. And we're back.
Back in session, you may be seated.
So you wanted to see me?
Yes, please, Your Honor.
Okay, over here or?
Okay, we are back with the sidebar. That would be sidebar number 5. Why do they do this? Like, why not just stay out? Big teases. Judge Cannone's courtroom is a tease. Let's see what Liam left me a big message here. Let's see. Yes, exactly. If she had called 911, wouldn't that have been like a whole different story? You know? Liam says, I think that reversing to him was not done to cause damage and especially not to kill him. Well, she must have known on some level that she hit him, yet looking drunkenly around, probably convinced herself that it was the flagpole or the curb which caused the bump. The fact that in her drunken and angry state she drove away rather than check may not show guilty conscience at the time. Exactly. Still, she left and had time to consider and calm down, yet still continued on her bloody-minded course. Exactly. That is me being charitable with her state of mind. I understand. Well, yes, and she did make the statement to her father at the hospital that she thought she hit something. Yeah. She was confused, though. This is when, she was Section 12 to the hospital. So, like, a lot of her statements were probably irrational, But I do think that perhaps she reversed by mistake. She was very drunk. I don't think she intended to hit him either, And I just think she was a course of bad judgment. She made the wrong choice. She went home. She freaked out a little bit. And then realized it's probably too late. I don't know. The one thing she didn't do is call 911. She didn't call hospitals to look for him. And here's the other thing. One thing that struck out to me, like recently when I was replaying some of the testimony, is in Jen McCabe's statements and everything, Karen Reed not once asked her, what time did John leave the house? Did John go to sleep on the couch? Never asked her a thing on if he was in the house. No, she says at some point in some of the interviews that she saw him go in. Why didn't she ask Jen that, knowing Jen was inside the house? And she knows Jen was inside the house because Jen was texting them from inside the house. Why didn't it occur to her to ask him? Unless she already knew he was outside in the snow. That bothers me. She didn't call anybody first. She woke up the niece, and the niece is the one who called Jen McCabe. Because Karen was acting a little irrational, a little weird, and upset. And was saying things like, I think he might have got hit by a plow. I'm curious. What could they be talking about already? Hmm. They have quite a few court officers here in this very tiny courtroom. When I look at this, I realize how small this courtroom is. They did do an amendment to the buffer zone. Well, based on a lawsuit, the Supreme Court weighed in and they had to clarify things. They are allowed to do peaceful protests as long as it's not loud, no signage or anything like that, nothing on the court property or blocking the sidewalks or anywhere near. But they're allowed to go to that one area, that one park off to the other side there where they did the peaceful protest last year. They got that back. They think it's a huge win, but the Supreme Court really um did not change any of the parameters the judge had set with all of the loud protests, the calling out, any of that is still against it, uh, against the buffer. But they did also do the caveat that if anyone feels they were falsely arrested or treated because of it, they can contact the Superior Court and register a complaint, and it's up to the Superior Court to figure out a way to handle the complaints about the buffer zone in an expedient way to hear the argument on it. Many people were told to leave or were harassed. They were claiming they were harassed in some kind of way, that it was too strict. Well, they still cannot be on the sidewalks, up the stairs, anywhere in front of the building, anywhere near where the jury comes in. They're not allowed to block or protest in any way. They're not allowed to shout, sing, do anything like that. No bullhorns, anything. And we're back again.
Tori, I'm going to give you those. Those were both marked for ID. So one will be coming into evidence and one will be a chalk. So you may need to have them available for the witness.
My witness is coming back.
You can sit or stand wherever you're more comfortable, doctor, for now.
What is it they're preparing? I guess the evidence that they're going to show on the screen or something? Karen Reed signaling to a reporter towards the back or a family member that she just was messaging them to check their phone. I wish I knew what Alan Jackson was thinking at the time. He does not look well the last few days. He's like in his own world. Seriously. Half, like, I don't know. He's thinking, concentrating on something. Yeah. The jury's coming back in. Is that what we were waiting for? Yes. Okay. That's why it was so quiet. You can hear them entering the jury box, the footsteps on the floor, situating. And there is a mic right there. You can hear them banging it.
All right, Mr. Brennan.
And continuing with the direct of the medical examiner, chief medical examiner.
Doctor, when we left off, you had described all the injuries to the exterior of Mr. O'Keefe, and we had talked about your observations of both the fractures in his skull and also your observation of Mr. O'Keefe's brain. You mentioned earlier that you use other resources, other testing. Did you ask for any type of assistance on toxicology analysis for Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, it is routine, and it is protocol to submit toxicology specimens to the lab for examination.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Doctor, I'm handing you a document. Do you recognize that?
Yes, this is the report of toxicology from the State Police Crime Lab for Mr. O'Keefe's autopsy.
Have you seen that document before?
Yes,
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of the report we saw before?
yes.
All right, introduce this as the next exhibit, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Exhibit 161.
Thank you. I have that in front of me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
In your experience, Doctor, are you familiar what the toxicology report and the testing involves?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Are you familiar in your experience with what is involved in a toxicology test?
In general terms, yes.
And if you studied Mr. O'Keefe's toxicology report, was that important or part of your analysis in your ultimate conclusions?
It was one piece of evidence that I took into consideration, yes.
In the toxicology testing, is there a search to see if there are any type of drugs or medications in Mr. O'Keefe's blood?
Yes.
Okay. And was there any?
There were no prescription medications. There were no illicit drugs in his system.
In a toxicology, is there also a testing for blood alcohol content?
Yes.
What is the difference between ethanol in heart blood and ethanol under 1102?
in vitreous humor.
Yeah.
So we usually submit multiple specimens for toxicology. Some of the specimens are used for screening of classes of different drugs, and then other specimens are used to confirm, the presence and quantify a particular drug. So in this particular case, the lab tested the heart blood, which showed that it had an ethanol level of 0.21 grams per deciliter. And they also tested the vitreous, which is the fluid that sits behind the eyeball. And in that specimen, the ethanol was slightly higher at 0.28.
Thank you, doctor. After your autopsy and observations of Mr. O'Keefe's body, inevitably, did you come to a conclusion about the manner and cause of Mr. O'Keefe's death? And I'll ask you first about the cause. To a reasonable degree of medical certainty, did you reach a conclusion about the cause of Mr. O'Keefe's death?
Yes, the cause of death was determined to be blunt impact injuries of head and hypothermia.
You mentioned two different things, blunt impact and hypothermia. Was
Correct.
there a primary cause of death in your opinion?
The blunt impact injuries of head.
Hypothermia, was that sufficient to be a primary cause of death in your opinion?
In the absence of head trauma, hypothermia is a cause of death, but I'm not able to make that determination in this case because we do have the blunt impact injuries of head.
So if I understand, you are not saying to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that hypothermia was the cause of death?
Not the primary. It contributed, but the primary cause of death was blunt impact injuries of head.
Did you learn what Mr. O'Keefe's body temperature was when he was brought to the hospital?
Yes, some of the medical records stated that his body temperature was 80.1, I believe, degrees Fahrenheit.
And what is a normal body temperature?
98.6.
Regarding the blunt force injuries as the cause of death to Mr. O'Keefe, at some point when you were conducting your autopsy, or even at the end when you drew your conclusions, were you able to reach a conclusion as to the manner of Mr. O'Keefe's death to a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
No, I was not.
After you complete your findings, including the manner of death and the cause of death, even if undetermined, are you required by statute, by law, to file a report or a document?
Yes,
And what is that document?
it's the death certificate.
Did you do so in this case?
Yes,
When you file a death certificate, do you include your ultimate conclusions regarding cause and manner of death?
yes. There is a death certificate that is issued immediately after the autopsy. The death certificate is a document that is necessary for the family in order to make funeral arrangements and proceed with their plans. So a death certificate is always issued at the end of the autopsy. If the cause and manner of death are known at that point, they are stated on the death certificate. If they are not, or if we need to do additional studies, then both the cause and the manner are listed as pending. And that death certificate is sufficient for the family to make arrangements. Later, as we get more information, as we get more results from our studies back, we issue an amended death certificate. So that amended death certificate will have a cause and a manner. The amended death certificate in this case stated that the cause was blunt impact injuries of head and hypothermia, and the manner was undetermined.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Doctor, I'm handing you a document. Do you recognize that document?
Yes,
And what is it?
this is the final or amended death certificate for Mr. O'Keefe, stating that the cause of death is blunt impact injuries of head and hypothermia, and that the manner of death could not be determined.
Do you recognize that document as accurate?
Yes.
Your Honor, move this into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Right, thank you. 162.
After issuing the death certificate and after the 90 days pass, have you done any further study or investigation on this case, doctor?
No.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Alessi?
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
We have not had the pleasure of meeting, so good morning, Dr. Scordi-Bello.
Morning.
With regard to cause of death as opposed to manner of death, is it correct that a forensic pathologist is tasked with determining that cause of death that includes contributing factors, injuries, and circumstances regarding the medical legal death investigation? Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And I'm using the term medico legal. Is that a term that you're familiar with?
Yes.
And is it correct that medical legal means, particularly for medical examiners, that there's a medical aspect to the investigation that you perform, and there's also a legal aspect or a law enforcement aspect to it? Is that correct?
Correct.
And that's a little different than what physicians usually do, right? Because isn't it the ordinary course that it's mostly just medical, but medical examiners by statute and law need to have both of those prongs taken into consideration? Do I have that right?
Yes.
So in other words, the forensic pathologist, which you've indicated you are, is tasked with determining the cause of death, which answers the question as to why, in more layman's terms, why did the individual's body stop functioning at a particular time, correct?
Yes.
So more broadly, the cause of death is generally defined as the disease or the injury that resulted in the death of a person.
Correct.
So let's now, if we could, please move to the manner of death. And I'd like to summarize, I know you covered it on direct, but I want to put it in a slightly different context, and hopefully I'll get it right. So medical examiners, as you've stated, are also tasked with, if they can, determining the manner of death or the circumstances under which the death occurred, correct?
Correct.
So manner can and does involve the circumstances under which the death occurred.
Yes.
And that causes one to go a little, the medical examiner to go beyond just medical analysis. You take into consideration other factors which we'll get to. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you talked about, and I'm just going to go through them quickly, but if you could just check me on this, the 5 main categories of manner of death. So you talked about natural causes, correct?
Yes.
You talked about accident.
Correct.
You talked about suicide. You talked about homicide. And then the last category, undetermined. Do I have that correct?
Yes, you do.
So what I'd like to do is to focus on the undetermined category. And my understanding is, doctor, that that's where you landed, that's where you concluded with regard to manner of death of Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Correct.
So undetermined is a term that is used and that you use. And does that mean that when the information pointing to one manner is not more compelling than other reasonable possibilities, or the death investigation lacks sufficient information to opine on a manner of death, at the time of death, the certificate is signed? Is that generally correct?
Yes.
So as we've talked about, I'm just trying to follow or just develop some logic and see if this is in agreement with you, that as a medical examiner, you're specifically tasked with conducting that medical legal investigation. And what we've just talked about is a bit of the method of analysis that you go through for that, correct?
I conduct the autopsy and I request information information from the investigative body that is out there investigating the other aspect of the case, not the body itself.
Yes. So is it correct that there's 4 general components to a forensic pathologist death investigation? Is scene investigation one of the components?
It depends on the jurisdiction where you practice. Scene investigation is part of forensic pathology in certain jurisdictions, and it is the responsibility of the district attorney and law enforcement in other jurisdictions. In the state of Massachusetts, we are responsible for the autopsy, and the DA's office and law enforcement are responsible for the scene investigation.
Excellent. So scene investigation in the state of Massachusetts is not within your domain in the office of the medical examiner. That is the domain of the district attorney and law enforcement, correct?
Correct.
How about another aspect, forensic autopsy and laboratory testing? That's within your domain, correct?
Correct.
And how about police reports and witness statements?
That is not under my jurisdiction. That is under the district attorney's office and the police.
Do you consider information, nonetheless, from police reports and witness statements in your analysis?
Yes.
And do you also consider, even though it's not within your jurisdiction in Massachusetts, do you also consider information about scene investigation?
Yes.
So it's correct then that you consider, whether it's within your jurisdiction or not, you consider scene investigation and police reports and medical statements, correct?
Yes.
And then forensic autopsy and laboratory testing is right within your jurisdiction, and therefore, of course, you consider that. And then lastly, medical history and hospital records, is it therefore, am I correct that that's something within your jurisdiction and that you consider in performing your forensic pathologist death investigation?
Yes.
So now let's move on to the application of those principles. So in order to conduct a proper medical legal investigation, the medical examiner has to have certain qualities, if you will. Is one of them being well-grounded in general medical knowledge?
Yes.
Is another appropriate training and experience in forensic pathology?
Yes.
In other words, you wouldn't want a specialist, for example, in cardiology without anything more to be conducting a death investigation. Is that correct?
I would not want them to be conducting an autopsy. Correct.
Right. Would you want a neurologist to conduct a death investigation?
Personally, or are you asking me that? No, I don't think every physician has their specialty and their training. And forensic pathologists are trained to perform autopsies, and cardiac surgeons are trained to perform cardiac surgery.
Would you want a neurosurgeon to be conducting a death investigation?
To be performing an autopsy? No.
So you wouldn't want a neurosurgeon to perform an autopsy?
No,
Because you don't believe they're qualified to do so, correct?
I don't believe they've had the appropriate training to perform an autopsy.
Going back into the many qualities of a medical examiner and attributes, they also have to have the ability to form opinions based upon all the available information using the scientific method along with sound reasoning. Is that a fair statement?
Yes,
And you're familiar with the term scientific method?
yes,
And is it fair to say that the scientific method generally is sort of a systematic pursuit of knowledge that involves recognition and definition of a problem? Is that fair?
yes,
Is it also involve the collection of data through observation and experimentation where appropriate?
correct.
Does the scientific method also include the analysis of data?
Yes,
Does the scientific method also include the formulation, evaluation, and testing of hypotheses?
yes,
And does it also, where possible, include the selection of a final hypothesis after considering other hypotheses?
correct.
So what we've just discussed is a fair explication, a fair explanation of the scientific method. And the
Correct.
scientific method is part of the autopsy and forensic pathology analysis, correct?
Correct.
Now, applying one concept, that medical legal concept we talked about, just holding for a moment, if you could, the medical and going to the legal, if you will, law enforcement that you said in Massachusetts is not under your jurisdiction, but nonetheless, you consider information arising from it.
Yes,
Are you familiar with a person named Michael Proctor? Is that name familiar to you?
yes, it is.
And at one time, Michael Proctor was a trooper, correct?
Correct.
And so did former Trooper Proctor inform you of the working law enforcement theory at the time of the investigation of this matter, namely his working theory, a collision of a motor vehicle with a pedestrian? Did he inform you of that?
He informed our office of that. Yes.
He informed your office. And is it fair to say that he informed your office or provided that information to your office in or about February of 2022?
That information, part of that information was provided to our office at the time of the autopsy. One of the pieces of information that had come in, and there were multiple sources calling into our office, providing information, was that this was a possible person struck by a motor vehicle.
And the time of the autopsy, if I have it correctly, was that around the end of January of 2022?
The autopsy was January 31st.
Your Honor, if I could, with your permission, please publish a photograph which Your Honor has and the parties have stipulated, or that's in evidence. And this is the one. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
May I show that to the witness?
Okay. All right, so we will mark this as the next exhibit. There's no objections to Brennan?
No objection.
Okay, so we'll mark it first and then you can display it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Exhibit 163.
Thank you. May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Scordi-Bello, if I could hand that to you, please. You could take a look at it, and when you've had a fair opportunity to look at it, you can just look back up, and I'll proceed at that time.
Yes, I recognize the picture. Well, I've never seen this picture before, but I know what it's depicting.
Thank you. What is depicted in that picture?
It's a picture of two individuals standing in a morgue setting, which looks very similar to our morgue at the Cape Cod office.
Very good. If you could just hold that for a moment, and with the court's permission, could I publish that for the jury?
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf? And if you could please zoom in on the two individuals in that picture. Dr. Scordi-Bello, do you recognize any of the individuals in that picture?
To be perfectly honest, no, I don't.
With regard to the person on the right, do you recognize that person?
No, I don't.
And you said you recognize the setting, correct?
Yes,
And you, if I heard you correctly, you said this is the Cape Cod facility?
it appears to be correct.
Right. So you testified earlier, if I recall correctly, that the autopsy was performed at the Cape Cod facility of the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner.
Yes, it was.
And you're normally in, as I recall, the Westfield, in an office that covers Western Massachusetts, it's Westfield.
Correct.
But you were at the Cape Cod facility, as I understand it, because there was a staff shortage and you had to travel down to Cape Cod for this. Is this correct?
Correct.
So you weren't at your normal home base sort of facility. This is a facility that you went to for this autopsy, correct?
For this autopsy and multiple others, yes.
Yes. And you were covering a staff shortage, and that was the reason you went to Cape Cod, correct?
Correct.
And what's depicted in this picture are two individuals. For two individuals to be present, is there a protocol that they had to follow to be present for that, like a sign-in or an authorization?
Yes, there is a sign-in sheet that individuals have to put their name and their shield number and before they can come into the autopsy room.
So they have to put a shield number down, correct? You mentioned a shield number.
Yes,
And does that therefore mean that even though you don't know who they are, that they are with law enforcement? Are you able to determine that?
correct. I believe they were with law enforcement.
So those two individuals were with law enforcement, but you don't know who
I
they
know-
are.
I don't know who they are specifically and what their actual position was.
But they were with law enforcement.
I believe, if my memory serves me right, there was a person from crime scene investigation and someone from state police.
Thank
But I'm working on a 2+ year memory.
Fair, that's fair, that's fair. I'm not going to ask you more questions to probe the memory. We can take that down. And yeah, we are finished with that. If you could hand that to thank you. Now, we were speaking about former Trooper Proctor. Do you recall former Trooper Proctor sending you a copy of scene photographs and wanting to schedule a phone call with you so that he could explain the status of his investigation? You recall that?
Yes,
And that occurred approximately in March of 2022?
yes,
And-
approximately.
Right. And the method of communication of that was that by email, to the best of your recollection?
I requested that our medical legal investigator, we have our own investigators at the office that are responsible for obtaining medical records and sometimes being the liaison between us and law enforcement to get reports. I requested that she contact whoever was in charge of the investigation and set up a meeting, a phone call. So since it had already been a few weeks since the autopsy, I wanted to make sure that if there was any additional information that could be provided to me, I could take it into account because I had 90 days to issue a report and a death certificate on this case.
Now, you've mentioned the 90 days on direct. You just mentioned it now. is the 90 days a hard and fast rule, or is it just something you aspire to as a matter of good practices?
It's not a hard and fast rule. It's something that as an office, we try to achieve. Again, the reason being that there are family members, next of kin that are waiting for these reports and these death certificates for various reasons. So is it possible to go over the 90 days? Absolutely, if necessary. But we do try to finish our part in those 90 days.
So it's possible to go past the 90 days, but there would, given the considerations you just articulated, there'd have to be a pretty good reason why you'd want to do that, right?
Correct.
And in this situation, you concluded that you had sufficient information on the medical side and the legal side to come to the conclusions that you needed to come to. Is that fair?
Well, I had sufficient information on the medical side because I did the autopsy and I had those findings. I did not have sufficient information that pointed to one manner of death over another manner of death. And therefore, I stated that the manner of death was undetermined.
Exactly. So the manner of death is undetermined. And I want to, if I could, with you pursue that a little bit in a moment. But when you came toward the end of that 90-day period, you had information from the law enforcement side on their theory of what had happened, correct?
Correct.
I'll let that one stand.
You had performed all of the medical investigation and analysis that you needed to perform. Is that correct?
Yes.
There wasn't something more that you wanted to do on the medical side. You had mentioned, to be fair, you had Dr. Stonebridge involved as well. You had what you needed on that side, correct?
Yes.
And you therefore concluded on the manner of death that there was a not more compelling or more likely than other reasonable possibilities. Is that fair?
Yes.
So in furtherance of that, on April 14th of 2022, you issued a death certificate, correct?
Yes.
And please feel free to check your report of any dates or any other particular as I go through.
Okay. I issued my final report on April 14th, correct. And I would assume that the death certificate was on or around that same day.
Thank you. Now, to back up a little bit with regard to the autopsy, as you stated, it was conducted, I just want to do a little bit of a timeline, on January 31st of 2022, correct?
Yes.
And we discussed that the body of Mr. O'Keefe was presented to the Cape Cod location, correct?
Yes.
And you also discussed that you brought Dr. Stonebridge to work with you on this matter, correct?
She didn't physically come to the office. The way Dr. Stonebridge was involved is at the time of autopsy when the brain was removed, having seen that there were injuries, I saved the brain in a special solution, and then the brain was transported to our facility in Boston. That's where Dr. Stonebridge examines the specimens. And after examining the brain, she issued a report.
Who asked Dr. Stonebridge to become involved in the matter?
I did.
And Dr. Stonebridge is triple board certified, correct?
Correct.
She's a forensic pathologist, correct?
Yes.
That means she's achieved board certification in forensic pathology like you?
Do you know that?
I do.
I'll allow that.
Yes, she's board certified in forensic pathology.
And she is board certified in general pathology, correct?
Yes.
And she's board certified in neuropathology, correct?
Correct.
Can you briefly describe to the jury what neuropathology is?
Neuropathology is a subset or specific additional training in forensic pathology where the person spends a considerable amount of time, usually 1 to 2 years, examining brains and learning all about the diseases of the brain as well as trauma to the brain.
Now, you asked her to be involved, as you indicated earlier, correct?
Yes.
And you determined that she should be involved because there was a brain injury, correct?
There was trauma to the brain, correct?
Trauma to the brain. Is it a fair characterization that Dr. Stonebridge is sort of the brains of the brain area of autopsy? Is that fair?
I'm going to sustain the objection. Let's move on.
So with regard to Dr. Stonebridge, would you agree that she's really uniquely qualified in some ways? Or how would you describe her qualifications, Dr. Stonebridge?
Sustain.
With regard to Dr. Stonebridge, what did she do?
I'm going to see you at sidebar on this, please.
You need another sidebar. And when we come out of this one, we'll probably go to lunch. Watch. Yeah. I'm looking for my last notice. I do think it wasn't when's his speed number 6? Wait a minute. Really? Is it number 8 already? Yeah, number 6. Number 6. Thank you, couch. It's getting so ridiculous. So both of them. I know, he's like really it's so hard for me to figure out where his point is. By the time he gets to it, he's like, it's like it takes 27 sentences to say anything. And then I'm still not sure what he said. It's very confusing for me. I know he has a point, but like, what is it? It's another version of you are all either too corrupt or too stupid to do your jobs, which he keeps implying. Exactly. It's like Defense 101. Y'all don't know what you're doing, and we're going to point at it. Yeah. No, I get it. You know, I'm just shaking my head. Yep, that is the point, Meg. To confuse everyone, muddy the waters, cause reasonable doubt. Well, you have to remember in the jury instruction for reasonable doubt, it doesn't mean that there is a doubt you just can't convict. It means beyond, like, if you can reasonably assume that that is what happened, then that's fine. But they actually have some evidence to this doubt, some plausibility. You know, it has to be reasonable. I mean, the key word there is reasonable. And some of this theory is just way out there. I mean, to think that everyone involved in the case just had it in for her.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Scordi-Bello, have you, are you aware of an attorney name, or excuse me, a doctor named Azik Wolf?
No, I'm not.
Now I'd like to move on to another category. Based on the information that was presented to you as part of your examination and analysis, is it correct that you presume that because Mr. O'Keefe's body was found in the snow and his body temperature was 80 degrees, that he died from hypothermia as one of the causes?
I reached that conclusion after performing the autopsy and after seeing some findings that were consistent with hypothermia, and then combined with the information that was provided to me about Mr. O'Keefe's body being found in the snow, I came to the conclusion that was one of the things that contributed.
Did you consider whether there may have been other reasons as to why his body reached that temperature of 80 degrees? Sort of applying the scientific method and seeing if there were other reasons?
Other than being out in the snow? No, I do not.
Do you know whether there are other alternative reasons how his body could reach the temperature of 80 degrees?
People can become hypothermic for other reasons, such as sepsis. But in this particular case, I didn't have any reason to believe that that was part of the circumstances.
You're familiar with the medical phrase differential diagnosis, correct?
Yes.
And a differential diagnosis is a term that's used by doctors to pursue other potential causes of a medical injury. Is that a fair general statement?
Yes.
So, for example, if somebody is having difficulty breathing, a doctor may say, I think it's the heart is their primary hypothesis, but they may want to differentially diagnose this and look at the lungs. Is that an example of a differential diagnosis that let's look at the lungs to see if that may be the problem? Is that a good, fair example?
In the example you're giving, yes.
So applying that concept, and do you believe the concept of, well, applying that concept to this situation, did you perform a differential diagnosis as to the cause of the death and question whether there was hypothermia as any cause of the death of the decedent? Did you make that analysis?
I looked at the anatomic findings that I had at the time of autopsy, the information that was provided to me based on the circumstances and where the body was found. And I came to the conclusion that there were hypothermic changes in Mr. O'Keefe's body.
So you just used the phrase hypothermic changes. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Can there be hypothermic changes without a cause of death being hypothermia?
Yes, of course.
So you can have signs in the body of hypothermia, but you can also conclude that a cause of death is not from hypothermia, correct?
If the person is deceased and I am examining the body and there are multiple things that I believe contribute to the death, then I tend to include all of them. meaning that if this was a drug intoxication and the body also showed signs of hypothermia, I would include both of them on the death certificate, because there is no scientific way of teasing out whether it was just one or the other or both. In this particular case, I had two processes that were going on. One was the head trauma, and the other one were these hypothermic changes. I put all that together, and again, included or took into account the investigative information of where the body was found, what the temperature was when the body was found, whether the person was still alive or not. And I came to the conclusion that the cause of death was blunt impact injuries of head. And I included the hypothermia because I saw during the autopsy that there were changes consistent with hypothermia.
So I want to break that down a little bit if I could with you. So you testified on direct, and I think you alluded to it here, that the primary cause of death, use that phraseology on direct, was blunt force injury. Is that correct?
Blunt impact injuries to the head, yes.
Blunt impact injuries to the head. And that's the primary cause, right?
Correct.
And then there's, and I'm not clear on what you refer to on direct as a secondary cause of being death of hypothermia, but you've used a little different phrase in some of your answers, and I want to make sure I got it right. Hypothermic considerations. Can you repeat what it was?
I said hypothermic changes.
Hypothermic changes, and we agree that you can have hypothermic changes without a conclusion of hypothermia, correct?
No, hypothermic changes are what I'm referring to are actual things that I can see in the organs that are consistent with hypothermia. They're anatomic findings. They're things I can see with my eyes.
So you can, I'm sorry, did you finish?
And those changes suggest and are consistent with someone being hypothermic.
As you sit here now, with regard to, you use the phraseology consistent with hypothermia, signs of hypothermia, that's what I want to pursue just a little bit with regard to further information. We got started on this by asking whether you used the concept of differential diagnosis and hypotheses to determine the cause and manner of death. And you said in one of your answers that you relied upon law enforcement information, correct? Is that
Yes.
part of it? It was, you brought that up. You're the one who said you relied upon that, correct?
Yes.
And you've brought that up on your direct testimony and earlier in the cross. Is that correct, that you relied upon the investigation of law enforcement? So,
Sustained.
so now what I'd like to do is to ask you whether, using the concepts of differential diagnosis, scientific method, did you consider whether Mr. O'Keefe could have died somewhere other than where the body was found and been moved and placed in the snow? Did you consider that?
Sustained.
May we approach, Your Honor?
Move along with this. We can approach in a bit.
Thank you. What, if any, alternative diagnoses did you apply to Mr. O'Keefe?
I don't understand your question.
What alternative scenarios did you look at, if any, for the cause or manner of death of Mr. O'Keefe?
I'll allow that question. What, if any?
At the time of the autopsy, I documented injuries and signs of hypothermia. I was provided with a set of circumstances And at the end of the investigation, or at the end of, my timeline, I concluded on the cause, but I did not conclude, or I did not determine a manner. The manner would be the circumstances you are speaking about, whether I considered other causes or circumstances. That's not how it works. I don't come up with hypothetical scenarios on how those injuries occur. I try to state the injuries, describe the injuries, state the cause of death and why that person died. And then I use all kinds of other investigative information that is provided to me to determine if I have enough to make a determination on the manner.
Did anyone provide to you any alternatives as to the finding of the body of Mr. O'Keefe in the snow?
Personally, to me, no.
Did you ask for any alternatives to the nature and location of the injury or death of Mr. O'Keefe?
I asked for all the information that was available.
Understood, but my question is, did you ask for any alternatives to the information that was provided to you as regards the location of the injuries? Did anyone provide you any alternatives to where the injuries could have occurred?
No.
So,
I'm going to let the answer stand. So the answer is no, so there's no evidence of that. So next question.
so you talked about the information you had at the time. What time is that?
The information at the time was a preliminary police report and verbal communications
And
regarding the circumstances of how Mr. O'Keefe's body was found.
And when I asked about the time, I'm on calendar time. Was this January, February, March, April of 2022?
The preliminary police report was on the day of the autopsy, and then information, I don't remember exactly how long, but in the weeks following, information was coming in.
Do you have the ability to amend a death certificate?
Yes, I do.
And you can amend a certificate if you obtain further information with regard to the circumstances surrounding the death. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In your previous answers, you were talking about the information you had at the time. And I'm concluding that the latest that would be is April of 2022. Is that correct?
Correct.
Have you obtained or been provided with further information? In other words, information after April of 2022 regarding the cause or manner of death?
What do you mean, have I been provided? Has someone physically provided me with a report on different circumstances?
Well, what I'm just talking about is any other information that you have received or considered in terms of the analysis with regard to the cause or manner of death.
Received in what way?
Here's what I'll do. I'll be a little more specific. What I want to do is to get at the head injury of the decedent, okay? Is it fair to say that the head injury, you called it a traumatic, state what you phrased that as, because I want to use your phraseology.
Blunt impact injuries of the head.
So blunt impact injuries of the head. Is it fair to say that that was a very severe injury?
It was a severe injury, correct?
And would Mr. O'Keefe had been rendered unconscious nearly instantaneously with death following shortly thereafter?
It's very possible, yes.
Is it more than possible? Is it probable that that's what would have occurred?
I can't tell you how quickly he would have been rendered unconscious, but at some point after that injury, yes, he would have been rendered unconscious.
Is it possible he could have been rendered unconscious immediately?
So she's answered it this way. I think you need another person for that. Let's move on from that, Mr. Alessi.
You made your own determination of the cause of death, correct?
Yes, that's my job.
Understood. And what I want to do is to pursue the basis of your determination. So you used the phrase brain impact injury,
Blunt impact.
a blunt impact injury. Have I got that correct?
Blunt impact injuries of head, yes.
Of head, right. And that's your conclusion, correct?
Yes.
Based upon your conclusion, did you make any determination as to whether the decedent would be able to carry out any purposeful movement after that injury?
Define purposeful movement.
Sure. I'm talking about the ability to perhaps manipulate their hands.
I don't know.
Did you make any determination as to whether they would be able to engage in any cognitive functions, meaning processing things and making decisions?
I did not make that determination, no.
Did you observe any pattern to the injuries to the head of the decedent?
A pattern? I observed that there were injuries to the back of the head as well as other internal injuries to the base of the skull, as well as the brain.
Your Honor, if we could please publish, I'm just going to check to make sure they're in. If we could, Your Honor, publish 160 that is in evidence. But before we do, Mr. Wolf, I would like to approach Your Honor and let you know in case there's anything further that
Okay.
needs to be done. Thank you.
Did you show it to Mr. Brennan?
It's already been agreed to as in evidence. and it
Okay.
is in evidence.
Oh, it's in evidence?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure if there was any statements that Your Honor wanted to make.
So why don't you come over here why don't you come over a second?
Here we go. Sidebar, sidebar, sidebar. Sidebar. Just take out the trash. Eric, like she's dealing with a teenager who doesn't want to. I wanted to. I know. She's asking more questions than he is just in trying to process the backwards working. He's trying to confuse everyone with, I get it. We've got sidebar number 7. Couch is right on the number there before lunch. At this rate, we could break our record today. Our record for sidebars is 13. Since we started counting them anyway. But with 7 before lunch, there's a good chance. There's a good chance that it could be. I should actually get you the other stream ready, shouldn't I? Yeah, I might as well get that link up just in case. They should be going soon. Mm-hmm. Put it there. It's 37 now. Oh no, see, I pushed the shift button, it didn't work. Yeah, it's 37. Okay, we'll just leave it there. We win. I win. It's over 37. No, no. That's just my stupid wireless keyboard that I'm always complaining about. If I don't press a key a certain way, it just doesn't latch. I miss letters all the time. I hit them, but it just doesn't take. I don't know. I should really just get one that's plugged in. I'm having an issue. Yeah. Good enough of a chance to bet on it. I don't think we're going to get to 37. But yeah, let's bet, Maya. I'm all for it. Let's bet. Let's bet that we do break the record for sidebars today, which means we have to get over 13. Not match it at 13, but we have to be over 13. Yeah. I don't know. Do you want yes or no? You want over or under? You'll put 10K on 13 or under? Okay. So you're saying we won't break it. All right. I'll bet you 10K. This is OWO, right? This better be OWO. All I am rich when it comes to OWO. I have millions and millions and millions of dollars in OWO, but I don't have a penny to my name. Otherwise, yeah. My and I are tossing around the OWO books like we're really something. But you know what? In our mutual server, we are with the OWO. He's bigger than me, I think. I may beat him in OWO bucks, but he beats me in how many times he says OWO. Yeah, don't be sending me no 10K in euros. Although, hey, I'd gladly accept 10K in euros. I could think of plenty of things to do with 10K. Like, I'd take me a trip to the other side of the world for a little while. That's for sure. Because there was going to be the autopsy discussion today, John O'Keefe's mother is not in court today. Welcome back, Mr. Alessi.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Just once I wish you would say no.
With Your Honor's permission, I would like
Shake
to
it up.
publish Exhibit 160.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Scordi-Bello, if you could please draw your attention to what is depicted on both screens. Pick whatever screen is most convenient for you. And what I want to do is to go over what is depicted there. And I'd like to start with just some basics. What is that white rectangle that is on the photograph?
This,
Yes.
that's a ruler.
And what's the purpose of the ruler?
to show a scale. When I measure the injury, I use the ruler to document that.
And if you could please draw your further attention to what I will refer to, and you use your own term, but just to start it, the horizontal line that is appears to be a laceration. You know what I'm referring to?
This, yes, this is a laceration.
Right. So it's fair to say that that's a laceration.
Correct.
And just so we get all that's depicted on this, you referred to earlier up above that, the red area. Is that an abrasion?
Yes.
And do you also denote to the left, almost like a J type item going vertically up? Yes, and going up. Do you see that?
Yeah, that I did not note that specifically. I just noted the whole injury as part of the abrasion.
That's my point. So you didn't make a separate note of what appears to be a J, and it might be easier to see it in the screen over there. It's your conclusion, but is it easier to see there?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, and so you didn't make a separate note as to what that was in your report, correct?
No, I did not.
Do you consider that an abrasion or something else?
I believe that's still an abrasion.
Do you conclude that that J is different in any manner from the abrasion that you've noted above the laceration?
I believe it could be part of the whole abrasion, or it could be something different.
Fair enough. Would a fall backwards on a flat frozen ground produce a circular and not a linear abrasion as depicted here on the back of an injured person's head?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Assume a fall backwards on a flat frozen ground. Would such a fall and impact present that type of pattern, or would it present a circular pattern, perhaps with something like a starfish in the middle?
I'll allow that. Can you answer that?
I can say that a fall backwards could very well produce that injury.
My question is more specific, and that is a fall backwards where the person impacts the back of their head on flat frozen ground. Would you expect that type of a laceration from that type of a fall? Not just a general fall backwards, but specifically a fall backwards where the back of the head hits flat frozen ground. Would you expect that?
I could, yes.
And under what circumstances could a laceration like that and an abrasion, all of it together, what circumstances could cause that type from a fall backwards on flat frozen ground?
Well, the laceration is due to the blunt impact, and so is the abrasion. The abrasion is friction. So depending on the type of surface, you mentioned flat frozen ground, it's quite possible to have an injury as the one depicted. There's nothing inconsistent with this injury, and a fall on someone's on the back of the head with a blunt surface.
Is there, are you familiar with the phrase pattern recognition in medicine?
Yes,
And isn't pattern recognition something that requires training with regard to being able to recognize certain patterns and determining what could be causing that pattern?
yes,
And just merely recognizing whether there is a pattern takes certain specialty training, etc.
correct.
And isn't pattern recognition a principle that you apply in the medical examiner's office?
Yeah, we do.
And so example of pattern recognition could be a knife wound, correct?
Yes,
Could be a gunshot.
correct.
And there's certain patterns that you see on a decedent that can be consistent with those types of causes of injury, correct?
Correct.
Assuming a fall backwards onto frozen ground and there being on a lawn with grass, would you expect to see any grass at all in the injury site?
It's possible to have grass.
Is it possible to have well, are you familiar with the height and weight of the decedent generally? And if you need to look at your notes, please do so.
Yes. Mr. O'Keefe was approximately 6'1" and 216 pounds.
So assuming a fall backwards and an impact to head on a ground with grass, a person who's 6'1", there is going to be significant acceleration forces that occur as they're going backwards. Is that correct?
That's fair to say, yes.
And therefore, the more acceleration forces, usually there's a correlation with the force of the impact.
Correct.
And in terms of force of impact and assuming grass on the ground, would you, do you believe it's more probable than not that one would then see some grass on the head?
Sustained is that form.
Given what you testified regarding the height of Mr. O'Keefe, and assuming what I just gave to you as a fall backwards and acceleration and forces, would you expect to see anything else on the back of his head?
You have to be more specific than that.
Right, I thank you. So would you expect to see, is it possible if that was the manner of the fall that there should be grass on the head? Is that possible?
Sustained.
Did you consider at all in your evaluation let me back up. Do you see any evidence of grass in this depiction?
No, I do not.
Did you recall ever seeing any evidence of grass when you were performing the autopsy?
I did not see evidence of grass.
Did you consider at all in performing your autopsy whether or not grass should be present given what was reported to you by law enforcement?
Sustained.
Did you make any considerations at all regarding grass in regard to your autopsy report?
I did not see any grass. No, I did not make any determinations.
And was grass at all even a consideration in your analysis?
I had very limited information as to the exact nature of the surface at the time of autopsy.
So the answer is no to that
No.
question. Thank you. Did you have any information regarding the circumstances that you said you look at in trying to determine manner of death as to whether there were any stones or rocks around the scene?
That I did not have any information.
So meaning you didn't have any information, you saw no information that there were any stones or rocks by the scene, is that correct?
Sustained in that form.
What, if any, consideration did you make in your assessment of cause and manner of death with regard to stones or rocks?
I did not make any.
With regard to any other potential causes other than ground, did you consider any other possibilities that could cause the type of injuries that are depicted on the screen?
There's a number of possibilities that could cause the injury.
My question is, did you consider, not whether there are, but whether you considered them at the time you were performing the autopsy?
I'm always considering at the time of autopsy what could have caused a certain injury.
Did you put in your notes or your autopsy report any of those considerations? Are they documented?
No.
Now, in terms of differential diagnosis that we talked about, did you determine whether there were any other possible explanations for the injuries to the decedent other than what law enforcement presented to you?
I'll allow that.
Internally, I consider all kinds of other explanations. I have to look at the findings and the possible ways that those injuries could have been sustained and decide whether I have enough information and whether I am satisfied with the information that I have in order to conclude or determine a manner.
Did you make any notes at all about the considerations you were just speaking about, other considerations, any notes whatsoever in any document in your autopsy report?
Not in my autopsy report, no.
Did you make any other notes of those considerations in any document that you created for this case at all?
No, these are considerations that I've had and discussions I've had with colleagues in terms of evaluating these injuries. And
I don't want you to go into what other people said, but I want you to finish your answer.
Right, no, I did not make physical notes of my considerations.
Your Honor, I'm going into a different category, so I just wanted to alert Your Honor to it.
All right. And it will take more than 10, 15 minutes?
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right, jurors. We'll take the lunch and recess. So we'll see you in about 40 minutes.
And we are going to lunch. That's lunch. And for those of you interested in joining me in the next stream, that's the lunch break, which is going to be an hour, I believe. Well, closer to 2 o'clock. I'll see y'all there.
Goodbye.
A little bit before. I think I hear these say for 1:45.
Defense has nothing, Your Honor. Thank you for asking.
Did you think she asked, do you guys want to talk to me before I leave? Or no, you're just going to save your sidebar number 8 for when I get back. Yeah, going to be sidebar number 8 when she gets back. But I think on that's us, right? So that's it for lunch. So I will join you all back in a little bit. Everybody get a good stretch, get something to drink. I'm going to take out my dog and make some more coffee. Maybe make a grilled cheese. It feels like a grilled cheese kind of thing. Yeah. I think that's what I'm going to do. For you all, I hope to see you over. Keep me company this afternoon. Let's hope that Alessi wraps this up. And then we've got a redirect by Hank Brennan, possibly, depending on where Alessi goes with this, because I don't see him making any ground. Any of you? I really don't see making any ground on this at all. But to each his own. On that, I will say I'll see you all in a little bit. Oh, wait. There it goes.